Hello and welcome to the Tool Assisted Podcast. This is your host, the 8-Bit Beast, and it's the 18th of February 2019 today. Today we're talking about Mario Kart Wii with Malleo and TASPlasma. How's it doing today, Malleo?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing great, thanks. So tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get into gaming and then speedrunning?
I'd say the first game I really got into was Mario Kart Wii. Probably started when I was about, honestly, 7 or 8 years old, about like a year after the game came out. Ever since then, I just got really into competing in time trials and that sort of thing. And then fast forward a couple years in 2011, I believe, I ended up making my first tool-assisted speedrun because I saw a few YouTube videos of people making tasks of Mario Kart Wii, and I thought that'd be and I've been doing that ever since.
Nice. So your first TASing thing was sort of Mario Kart Wii then?
Yeah, it was. I went from there eventually to Paper Mario, that whole series. But I ended up going full circle. I've just come back recently to Mario Kart Wii again.
Nice. And how did you find out about TASing? Do you remember what the first one you saw was?
It was probably, honestly, Super Mario Bros. For the NES. One of Happy Lee's tasks, I guess. And, you know, I didn't understand what a task was completely at that point. I just understood that, you know, there wasn't a human doing that. It was crazy. Like everything, all the execution was perfect. And I guess I got obsessed with watching those because all the runs were, you know, better than what a human could do.
Nice. It's a very good introduction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how are you today, TASPlasma?
I am doing well, thank you.
So Derek, is it?
Yes.
Yes. So how did you get into gaming and speedrunning, Derek?
I got into gaming from my brother, and I think same with Malleo. My first favorite game to play was probably Mario Kart Wii. I saw speedruns shortly after getting into Mario Kart Wii, and then I think my first TAS I saw was one by MK Dasher in Mario Kart Wii specifically, actually.
Nice, very good. So do you mainly focus on TASing Mario Kart Wii?
Yeah, big focus on TASing Mario Kart Wii, and actually I wrote a math paper that was like geared towards shortest or fastest possible like paths, which was like aimed at applying towards TASing. Yeah.
That's great. I love that. Did you like submit that paper anywhere or just?
Yeah,
just
it was.
for
I mean,
fun?
it was my undergrad thesis paper.
Oh, that's great. Good project. Okay, so yeah, Mario Kart Wii. So you can TAS on Wii, which always surprises me quite a bit. How is the emulation for that, and how would you deal with something like motion controls?
Yeah, I was surprised too how well Wii emulation worked. I'll definitely say it was more inaccurate a few years ago, but it's definitely gotten to the point where it's very accurate now. As for motion controls, I did experiment a little bit with Super Paper Mario, but I know emulating like the Wii Remote sensor moving around on screen, that's all pretty fairly accurate and easy to do in the emulator, I would say. And we're just now trying to get used to using the Wii wheel for Mario Kart Wii tasking. Derek, you might know a little bit more about that than I do, honestly, because we can touch on this later, but technically the Wii wheel is actually better for tasking in Mario Kart Wii than the GameCube controller.
So as far as we know, the wheel can do everything that a GameCube controller can do, but more, in fact. So there's on the GameCube controller, the analog stick is in a circle. So any input you press on the analog stick has to be on the circle. Whereas the wheel is more like a box. So you can actually hit the diagonal values will go farther and allow you to utilize the full horizontal and full vertical simultaneously.
And what's interesting about that is there's actually, not for the tasks that we'll be showing off today, but on Mushroom Gorge, for the human world record, the way that they do the glitch is actually only possible with the Wii wheel because of the fact that diagonal values are stronger in the box as opposed to the unit circle on the GameCube controller.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'm surprised to hear that the wheel has 2 dimensions of movement. I thought it would just be left or right in one dimension.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
with Wii wheels, you can tilt it back and forth, so you can either do a nose dive or a tail dive.
Yeah.
How significantly you do a tail dive while you're turning, that can get restricted with a GameCube controller, but you can do more of a tail dive while turning if you use the Wii wheel because of the box region.
Yeah, so tilting up and down actually changes how much you're also turning in the air. So all this stuff is only applicable when you're in the air. But for example, if you tilt back and are already turning towards the right, it will make you turn towards the right even faster.
Interesting. Yeah, I must not have picked that up when I played through Mario Kart Wii. Must be fairly subtle, I'd imagine. How is tasing with the wheel? Is it difficult to actually do or fairly straightforward?
From my experience, it's a lot different. So when we make tasks is we have task input, which is like an on-screen controller, and for the GameCube task input, it's pretty easy to see that it's for the analog stick. It's just a circle within a box, and wherever you move your cursor to on that circle is where the analog stick will be. But for the Wii wheel task input, there's an X, Y, and a Z axis on the task input that are supposed to represent, like one's turning left and right, one's like tilting back and forth. I forget what the other one is. I always have trouble visualizing this in 3 dimensions. But anyway, the values that you have to set the task input to on each of the axes is it's not as completely spread out. So I think like a left turn is like anywhere from like 0 to 600. Like the values are like really spread out. I don't know if you have more information on that, Derek.
Yeah, also the fact that it's controlled by an accelerator. So to execute a certain action, you actually have to do it over the course of 2 frames maybe. So you have to be thinking ahead when tasing with a wheel, and it's just something we're not quite used to yet. Like when you first make a Taz, you know how it feels. It feels like you have no idea what you're doing, and that's like what it feels like right now to make a Taz with the wheel. One person is actively trying to learn how to do it. He goes by Dwaynium B, but I think he's been semi-successful so far.
Yeah, he's been doing well. I think he's been mainly making kart tasks.
Yeah.
Really cool to see. Nobody's really, spent much time on that.
Yeah, and that's the thing that always interests me about this community. Because there's so many IL runs, you can have heaps of people working on it at once. That's really good to hear.
That's definitely one thing we've been doing more of recently, like collaboration. Within the Dolphin file directory, there's a save game file that contains all your license information and all the ghosts that you save on each track. So whenever we want to work on a track, we can just send our ghost data back and forth with other people. You'll see for the Luigi Circuit task, which will be first, and the Maple Treeway task, we actually had Maple Treeway, we had 6 people working on it, and Luigi Circuit, we had 4. And it's really cool to see that many people working on it because, when you have people around the globe literally just working on it constantly, you can get things done a lot more efficiently, and you don't feel the same amount of like burnout from, working on a track tirelessly and not making progress, for example.
So, moving on to glitches on this game, we've got one here called quantum mechanics. Does one of you want to explain what that is?
Sure. So, a lot of times you're going to be interacting with a certain object, maybe tricking off a ramp or something like that. And so we have this, rapid fire hop abuse. That's the best way to handle ramps. And you can start your rapid fire hop abuse in many spots, but oftentimes there's a very precise spot that you need to start it at. And, it's a finite frame per second game, so your character moves by teleporting. And oftentimes in the teleportation, you'll just skip over the zone you need to be in. You'll skip over the spot you need to start your rapid fire hop. So the way to remedy this is by maybe sacrificing a bit of time so that you'll end up teleporting to the right spot, or gaining time, which is usually harder in some possible if it's fully optimal. So we'll do these little time sacrifices, maybe like, it will be at most that of a frame. So in this game, 16, 17 milliseconds. So we'll do these little, 16, 17 at most millisecond time losses so that in the end we're gaining overall 100 milliseconds. So for example, like the blue ramp on Moo Moo Meadows, which we'll see in a bit, we found that if you lose like 5 milliseconds, you end up gaining 80. So we have to deal with this a lot, and this whole like system of, it's very chaotic, where you need to be is very important. That's what we call quantum mechanics.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Was it, when people found this, were they confused as to why they were going slower and then ending up with a better time?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we were all very unsure, and then it occurred to us that there are tricks that are pixel perfect. You can't just be doing something at the right frame. You also need to be in the right position.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear, and it sounds like one of those things where game physics don't quite line up with what real physics would be like, jumping over things in a frame. Alrighty, and it's about quantum mechanics. So with this and other racing games, there's some sort of checkpoint system, because otherwise you could go back across the line and then back across it again to get laps. I think Summoning Salt had a video about this, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a video explaining the history of ultra shortcuts, and in the beginning he had an explanation for the checkpoint system. I'm going to argue that there's more information that we now have that we can use to explain the checkpoint system. And I'll send over some images of the checkpoints so you can put those on screen to show people what it looks like. So each track has a series of checkpoints throughout the course. The game just uses that to keep track of the player, make sure they're making progress throughout the race. Among these checkpoints, there's a certain set of what we call key checkpoints. And these key checkpoints, basically the game requires you to pass through them. Otherwise, if you skip one key checkpoint and go to the next, it's not going to count the lap. It's going to recognize that you're doing something you shouldn't be, and the game's going to punish you by not counting your lap. So anytime you're in a given key checkpoint range, there are 2 key checkpoints that are loaded in the game's memory besides the one you're in. The game has in memory the key checkpoint in front of you and the one behind. So if you're in the first key checkpoint region, key checkpoint 0, and you skip key checkpoint 1 and you pass through key checkpoint 2, key checkpoint 2 is not loaded in memory yet. So the game's not going to recognize that you're going through a checkpoint. It's going to recognize that you didn't pass through the first key checkpoint. So it's not going to count your lap. And this is where ultra glitches come in. So if you go through the finish line in key checkpoint region 0, which is at the start of the race, if you don't pass through key checkpoint 1 and you go through the last key checkpoint of the lap right before the finish line, the last key checkpoint is loaded in memory. And the game recognizes that key checkpoint is greater than key checkpoint 0. It's farther into the lap than key checkpoint 0. So it's going to think that you progressed through the lap, and it's actually going to count the lap for you. I hope that was a good enough explanation. Now, here's the key piece of information that we just learned about recently. The game has what I like to call a built-in 95% rule, and we actually discovered this on a new task that we're trying to improve on Coconut Mall. So anytime that you go out of bounds and the game doesn't check your lap completion, is what we call it. Anytime you go outside of the bounds of the checkpoints and you re-enter through the last key checkpoint of the lap, if you jump more than 95% of the lap, the game will somehow recognize that, you're doing something weird, you're doing something wrong, and it won't count the lap. So, for example, on Coconut Mall, we use a glitch to trigger the lap late. Instead of triggering it on a lap 2 at a value of 2.0000, we'll actually trigger it on 2.01. So that's 1% through the lap more than normal. And we can, instead of continuing through the rest of the race, we can go out of bounds and just pass through the last key checkpoint. And the last key checkpoint is actually at about 95.5% through the lap. So, if you were to just cross through the finish line normally and try to hit that last key checkpoint, the game's going to recognize that you jumped more than 95% through the race. But because we're able to delay the lap count to 2.01 instead of 2.00, we can pass through the last key checkpoint and it actually counts the lap. So all in all, the game just has a built-in failsafe to prevent cheating and ultra shortcuts, I guess, by requiring that you don't jump more than 95% through a lap. And I'll have a video on that later. I'm still working on it, but I think that's it.
Okay, I'll look forward to seeing that video as well. So, even if you were to stay completely inbounds, if you jump too much, does that mean that you would not trigger the lap?
Yeah, if you were somehow able to stay in bounds and you didn't go through key checkpoint 1, so you're still in key checkpoint 0 technically, and you passed through the last key checkpoint of the lap, if the game wasn't able to keep track of your progression and you jumped 95% or more, it's not going to count your lap. But for all intents and purposes, as long as you're staying in bounds, the game is pretty good with having the checkpoint bounds always be, in bounds of where you would be driving. So I don't think there's any circumstance where it wouldn't count the lap for you.
Okay, that's very good to hear. Cool. So, yeah, and the tracks, because you can skip these checkpoints, they're split up between records with ultra shortcuts and essentially glitchless.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But glitchless may still do some tiny skips, is that right?
Yeah, nothing like super janky. We don't have like a nice definition of what's allowed and what isn't allowed. It's kind of agreed upon in the TAS community, and it might not be the standard amongst the rest of the community. It's really weird, but yeah.
So do you differ between TAS and RTA for any of the glitchless rules?
Oh man, it's tough. There's been some things that we said that's clearly a glitch, and other people say no, and then we fight about it, and then sometimes they'll say this is a glitch, and we will say no, and it's it's tough.
Yeah, the one example I can think of is on Maple Treeway for the no. It's supposed to be in the no glitch category. So there's a shortcut you can do right at the beginning of the race. You can use a mushroom and cut through some dirt on immediately to the right. And another tasker named Thomas is instead of using his shroom there, he actually took the first turn of the race normally. Used a mushroom and clipped the fence on the left side and got a massive amount of airtime that allowed him to pop up in the air and drop back down on like the shortcut path right before the cannon. And so we have people arguing, like, are wall clips considered glitches? Like, should this be allowed?
Yeah.
It's not using the ultra shortcut, but it's not glitchless either, right?
Yeah. Previous conventions stated that if you do a wall clip to achieve a shortcut that is otherwise impossible without the wall clip, it should be counted as a glitch. And now certain wall clips are being used to do shortcuts that are possible, but make them slightly better. And then at what point do you draw the line? And that's our issue.
Okay. See, I didn't realize that it was this controversial on some of the tracks. Does there tend to be more interest in ultra shortcut runs or the glitchless no ultra shortcut runs?
It depends on the course, question. I think it depends on the course. Like some courses, like the glitch is so spectacular that it's like, oh my god, wow, that's amazing. But like Coconut Mall is like honestly kind of boring. You're just driving around in circles in a parking lot. And I think most people agree that the no glitch time is more interesting because there's a lot more going on.
Okay, so that'll be the two categories, as we'll see later when we talk about the individual tracks. So we've had some recent developments, I hear, about some new Lua scripting support.
Yeah, so Dolphin, for the longest time hasn't had scripting support. And for those that aren't aware, scripting can help to automate a lot of the processes involved in tasking. One example I have is for when I worked on Paper Mario 64. I forget who helped me. It might have been a person by the name of JD Aster. He helped me create a Lua script that could look into the game's memory, read the RNG value, and it would spit out on screen, what the outcome would be when I was trying to manipulate something. So things like that can really help automate the process for tasking. For Mario Kart Wii, we're still trying to think of script ideas, but we've just recently got support thanks to THC98, who goes by Tails, and Swear. I don't know how to pronounce the second half of his name. SwareJonge, I think. But yeah, they were able to create a Dolphin 5.0 version with Lua scripting. So now we have Lua scripting support on a very recent version of Dolphin that, helps, it makes the game run really, really optimally while we're tasking, as well as, we'll touch on this later, but it helps our runs synchronize on console. So right now, all we have for scripts are, I created an input reader and a writer.
Yes.
So we can store the inputs from ghost data and we can play it back. It just stores the inputs in a text file. It's a little bit easier to transfer those between people, but it also allows you to essentially compare two ghost files by writing the inputs from one ghost and playing it back while racing a different ghost. You'll see at the beginning of races during the countdown, we can actually pop some wheelies and slide left or right. And that helps us inch forward a little bit towards the finish line to save a couple milliseconds. And so we Swear helped write scripts to automate that process as well.
Is it the same inputs when you're trying to get forward on the finish line for every track, or does it depend on the track? For all intents and purposes, it's the same. The only differentiation is between vehicles. The way you do it between different vehicles actually changes, but I'd say for the most part, all the tracks are the exact same. Unless
except
there's like
for Koopa Cape, you can't do a slide strat on Koopa Cape with Flame Runner at least. It's something I want to mention about the scripts, like with the input reader and writer. There's definitely some applications out there. So I saw my first seeing of Lewis scripts was from Weatherton testing Mario Kart 64, and he had basically the same thing where he would execute some sequence of inputs and then be able to see where it went wrong and then just modify them accordingly. And so now we have access to this. No one's like used it in that context yet, but something definitely we should be looking into.
Another thing with applications of the scripts, too, that I just thought of, with the input reader and writer, and piggybacking off what Derek said, so instead of doing a full 3-lap task, we also focus on fast laps, or we call them flaps for short. And I think we're showcasing one of them just because it shows off Supergrinding, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But so what can happen a lot when you start flaps, you'll sit around for a while and charge up a mini turbo and then drift into the finish line and release a mini turbo right when the lap starts for an additional boost. And what people often end up having is if there's certain cycles that go on during the race, such as on Coconut Mall at the very end, the cars might be in the way. And you end up losing time just because you started the lap, a couple tenths of a second too late or something like that. So what an input reader and writer would do would be to allow you just to insert a couple of blank frames, where you're just standing still, and then you can just start the lap a little bit later, and you'll end up having a better cycle that'll save you time.
That kind of reminds me of using something like TAS Studio. I'm not sure if you guys have used that before.
Oh yeah, on BizHawk, I've used that a little bit, and that's essentially what we want to try to develop, like have like an interface like that to make it easier to edit inputs.
Right now we're working with text files.
Oh man, that's rough. But it's good to hear that that's the direction that you're going in, because that's something that puts me off about TAS and GameCube, is that I wouldn't have TAS Studio. And we'll have an episode on Lewis scripting eventually on this show as well.
Cool.
Alrighty, so getting more into the guts of these tricks, we have a trick called Rapid Fire Hop Abuse. So what's this trick all about?
Do you want to touch on that, Derek?
Oh, sure. Rapid fire hop abuse is you can hop in the game simply by pressing the drift button. So every time you drift, you do a hop first. And if you just so happen to hop many times every other frame, so 30 times per second, depending on what you're using it for, the bike will start spazzing out on the ground. So the biggest application is probably for tricking, like I mentioned maybe earlier. If you are approaching a ramp and you rapid fire hop, you end up taking a very low trick, and we want to minimize as much airtime as possible because you decelerate in the air. So rapid fire hop abuse is used to reduce airtime for tricking, and then it can also be used for something else, which I'll let Malleo explain.
Yeah, so just to conclude with rapid fire hop abuse, it's kind of like your bike is getting stuck inside the ground. We don't really know why it's a mechanic, but it's a mechanic, and yeah, it just helps reduce airtime. So the next trick, just to piggyback off that, is called Supergrinding, and you'll see that on Luigi Circuit. To set that up, we have to start doing rapid fire hop abuse, just hopping 30 times per second near the last turn of Luigi Circuit. And then we can actually continue to press the hop button 30 times per second as we're going down the straightaway and passing the finish line. And because we're jammed in the road, we're basically able to keep we're not maintaining the momentum from the speed boost, but being jammed in the road allows you to basically build up speed. I feel like this is a Panacoic video. We're building up speed as we go down the straightaway, and we can continue that even past the first turn. We can go just sharp enough to make the first turn. Eventually, though, our angle changes too much to the right, and we end up getting ejected out of the road, and then from there, we can't super grind anymore. The only other application for this would be on Mario Raceway on the fast lap tasks, and we are going to show that off later in the video. And I don't know if that was the best explanation of super grinding. I have a full video on it on my channel where I go into more detail. But yeah.
Yeah, that video is a good watch. I would highly recommend it to the listeners. So yeah, the rapid fire hop abuse, you've said you have to press a button 30 times a second. So that's implying that the game runs at 60 frames a second. Is there any lag or anything that happens?
I've never experienced lag on Nintendo tracks. In the event of custom tracks, if somebody doesn't have an optimized track file and there's too many objects loaded on screen, it can definitely lag. But I've never had that happen on Nintendo tracks. That makes tasking a lot easier, I would say. Never having to deal with lag frames or anything.
Yeah, lag is very unfortunate when you're testing. I'm glad to hear that. Cool. So yeah, super grinding. And so why wouldn't it be more useful in other tracks? I was very surprised to hear that it could only be used in 2.
The criteria for getting a good super grind, it really only suits Luigi Circuit and Mario Raceway. The problem, for example, in Mario Circuit for using the super grind for a 3-lap task is that the setup, you don't have the full speed boost until basically when you cross the finish line. But basically, as you continue, jamming yourself into the road, and as you're going down towards the finish line, you're progressively building up speed more and more. But that's a very gradual process, and you start off going very slow, so it ends up losing time initially. And as well, the second turn after the finish line, it's just too tight, and it doesn't allow you to keep the super grind speed for that long. So that doesn't save time overall. Regarding other tracks, there's just not a good enough situation where you can avoid, the progressive speed buildup and, have the maximum speed right away. I think the way we do it on Luigi Circuit is just so unique. I don't think any other track has what we need to do it that optimally and that fast for that quick of a setup. So yeah, I don't have a great answer for that. It's just that, certain tracks don't, all the tracks besides Luigi Circuit and Mario Raceway just don't offer what we need.
Yeah, I definitely know the feeling of finding a general technique, but then it's not so general when you can't use it everywhere. But
Yeah.
I'm glad it's useful on some tracks at least. And would you be super grinding in no ultra shortcut category?
Oh, that's a
No, we wouldn't. We would count
Yeah.
super grinding as a definite glitch.
Uh-huh.
So like it's honestly beyond just ultra shortcuts, right? I mean, like certain shortcuts are glitchy in nature, and we just separate it by glitch and no glitch. And yeah, the ultra shortcuts will lie in the glitch category always, and then also super grinding.
Mhm.
So next trick we're going to talk about is side trick abuse.
Yeah. So when you're tricking on a ramp, actually what direction you press on the analog stick has an effect on your speed and your acceleration. I first actually should mention that there's different types of ramps. I'll call them maybe slow ramps and fast ramps. So fast ramps will give you a large speed boost when you land, and slow ramps such as Moo Moo Meadows blue ramp, this will not give you as much of a speed boost. So when you do a trick and you already have a boost coming into, for example, a slow ramp, the first important thing you should be doing is not up or down tricking, but side tricking. And then the other thing you want to do is press the direction on your analog stick that you are also tricking in. And what it does is it just lowers your deceleration. So it preserves your speed for longer. So I think in most footage you'll see the speed start at 108 and then go up to 109 and then slowly decrease down. Whereas if you don't do this correctly, it will quickly go back down to 100. And then just really quick, on fast ramps, the direction you press on the analog stick is the opposite direction, unlike on slow ramps. So it's something we have to be aware of. Just now I had to look it up while we're discussing this, but yeah.
Interesting. That's so weird that it's the other way around on the fast ramps.
Yeah, we have no idea what causes that.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out anyway. Alright, so this leads into a trick called mushroom abuse as well.
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, and people might berate me for messing this up, but the so-called mushrooms in Mushroom Gorge, they make you do tricks off them, and if you clip into the side of them, you're kind of not tricking over and over again, but you're allowing yourself to input side trick abuse frames multiple times. And normally when you trick on on a mushroom, it forces your speed down to 73, which is much lower than it usually is. But if you utilize this so-called mushroom abuse, which is, again, as far as I know, just iterated side trick abuse, you can boost your speed up very high. Some have done up to 100, maybe 108 even, which is very normally not possible on mushrooms.
I'm glad that it becomes applicable to mushrooms as well. Okay, so moving on, we've got another trick, wheelie triggers.
Yes. So wheelie triggers are when you do a trick and a wheelie at the same time. So this seems very counterintuitive. When the only way to be wheeling is to be on the ground, and if you're doing a trick and touch the ground, it releases your trick and then you're just going to boost. But as it turns out, if you touch the ground within a few frames of doing your initial trick, it doesn't give you the still thinks you're tricked. And so on that frame that you hit the ground, you can also input a wheelie. And this is good because wheeling is the fastest way to move in the game, besides super grinding, of course. And so we can be wheeling and tricking at the same time. This will allow us to be at our maximal speed.
So how long can you do that for?
As long as you're in the air for, and the key is the setup. You need to make sure that you're hitting a ramp such that there is ground very quickly after. So we'll see it on DK Summit, for example. There's a bunch of consecutive bumps, and this is great. You can do a trick off the first, and then starting at the next bump, do a trick, and then immediately enter a wheelie, a few frames after. And then since you have trick boost from the previous, you'll be going 120, units per frame, whatever measurement of speed you want to call it, and then you just keep this over and over again, as opposed to if you weren't doing a wheelie trigger, you'd be going 100. So it's a boost in 20 units per frame.
That is a very big difference. So how useful is it? Is it used on many tracks?
It's used on, I want to say 3, possibly 4. DK Summit, GameCube Mario Circuit. It's also used on Bowser's Castle Wii. Maybe a couple others. I could be forgetting something, but
yeah, those are the only ones I can think of for now.
Yeah, it's definitely extremely useful. Before they were discovered, so on DK Summit, the record was around a 140, and then it was around maybe a 139. But after wheelie triggers were discovered, it brought it down to a 137.
Oh,
in seconds.
A big difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So are there any other tricks that you guys want to add before we move on to talking about the individual tracks?
I think we're good. I think that's everything.
I think that covers everything. Wall tricks.
Oh, that's a good idea to talk about.
Just briefly. So if you do a certain trick direction and clip against the wall, the animation of tricking in combined with hitting the wall will propel you forward, and we call this a wall trick. You'll see it many times.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize that situation would present itself that often. That's awesome.
It's actually on quite a few tracks, and I forgot about that. That's a very recent thing, relatively speaking, that a lot of people have started integrating into their runs. We'll see that on Coconut Mall. We'll see it on Bowser Castle Wii, Toad's Factory as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, Maple Treeway, no glitch as well.
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think with that, I think we're ready to go into the videos.
Cool. So people who are watching this on YouTube will be able to see videos of the tracks. And in the description and the show notes, there'll be a link to the best track times. It's a Google Doc full of the records for tazzing. Cool. So for the rest of the podcast, we'll be talking about all the tracks in detail. And if you're able to, I would highly recommend watching the YouTube version for this, as it's very reliant on the video. I would normally play a jingle before every video in this podcast, but the videos are frequent enough that I think that would get annoying. And there will be game sound very lowly under the video anyway, so you'll be able to hear when the videos are happening. So without further ado, what's our first track to get started on?
All right, so we're first going to be showing off the Luigi Circuit Supergrinding TAS, which was made, it was released 8 days ago. So it's one of the most recent TASs that we've finished. And so that was worked on by myself, a Japanese TASer named Monster, Rocky, and Thomas. And I can just start it off whenever. Or... Okay. All right. So you'll see right here we do a slide at the start again. That just helps us inch up a little bit more. And we have a measure of our X and Y the X and Z plane speed in the bottom right. It's a little bit more accurate than the normal speed display that we use. So yeah, right here, we start rapid fire hop abusing, and we're holding right, and we can progressively make our way down the straightaway, and you can see we still maintain a speed of around 119 the entire time. We can and then this time I'll talk about the way that we recover when the game ejects us out of the ground when our angle changes too much. So we get a lot of airtime from this. We can just pop a wheelie, and then we can do 2 frame perfect hops right when we land, and that helps us conserve our speed a little bit longer while we make our way into the second turn. With just the right angle, you can do a hop towards that ramp without using a shroom, and it saves just a little bit of time. It might be half a frame or so, speaking. like 0.08 seconds. Yeah, it's very sad to see this. This was an improvement of about 0.3 seconds, and we just barely missed the sub by about 4 frames. But overall, I think we're all happy with how optimized it is, so can't be too upset.
So I noticed on the last lap you didn't do a super grind. Is that because the super grind is beneficial for things after the finish line? Or?
Yeah, this is kind of how Mario Raceway, works for the fast lap. The initial setup is slower, but it saves time for the fast lap after you pass the finish line, basically. So yeah, getting the super grind on Luigi Circuit, we normally don't go that wide around the last turn, but because you're keeping that 120 kilometers per hour, whatever unit you want to use, because you're keeping that 120 unit per second speed as you go past the finish line and through the first turn of the lap, you end up saving a lot more time later on. But yeah, you do lose time initially, and so that's why we don't do that on lap 3.
Very interesting. So, remind me, how much time did super grinding save on that track?
So the current non-super grinding record, I believe, is a 107.997 by Monster. So this is a savings of almost 2 seconds.
Wow, that is really huge.
For a track that short and that simple, it's pretty crazy of an improvement.
Yeah.
The second one, Derek can take over. This is his run he worked on with another taster named Zak.
Yes, so I worked on lap 1, part of lap 1, and a little bit of lap 2. First turn's just optimization and line work. So coming up here is a classic example of quantum mechanics, this blue ramp I mentioned. We do rapid fire hop abuse through it at a very specific time, and also rapid fire hop abuse at a specific time on that last ramp there. Very crucial. So you might be wondering how we were able to drive through the grass at the end. It's because the ramp we're touching is a boost ramp, so not only is it a faster trick, but the boost pad itself gives you off-road immunity for a bit, which we'll see again. We're hoping to beat that mole one day, and then potentially save 100 or so milliseconds. Right now, what we found is Spear is actually faster on this course. It's faster by potentially a whole 100 milliseconds, so we're hoping Spear can maybe beat the mole. And even if it doesn't beat the mole, Spear has better acceleration, so the process of hopping over the mole with Spear will save even more time.
How much do you think you're going to end up improving this task by?
True, yeah, so 100 to 200 milliseconds, and then maybe even 300 if we can beat the mole.
Right, okay.
So what is it that the mole does that slows you down, though?
His little pieces of dirt puts you at a very, very slow speed, so what we have to do, it's even faster to just jump over it and cancel our wheelie temporarily. But ideally, we would pass him and not have to jump over him at all and just wheelie all the way through it, but we can't seem to do that yet. But we'll find out soon. We're at the beginning of lap 2 in our Spear run.
Interesting. And it was really surprising to see that you rapid fire hop abused over the fast ramp and went onto the grass. I was surprised to see that was faster.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
yeah, so it's weird, like, why wouldn't you just have the boost from the boost pad in the air and then land from the trick and then have, like, it's almost like you're wasting boost frames landing sooner. We have I mean, as far as we know, yeah, we don't really know why it's happening that way. The only thing, when you land from the trick, you're going 120 as opposed to 100 in the air, so... And there might be some weird thing with slopes and stuff like that involved as well. Skipping over extra, like, distance frames as well.
Interesting. So, and something we haven't touched on, I think, is what characters / vehicles to use. You mentioned that there was another faster one?
Yeah, so the Flame Runner is the most common. Actually, not even... I don't think that's a true statement anymore. The Flame Runner used to be the most common it's a very like well-rounded bike. It's fast. It has good drifting, good mini turbos, and we will always use Funky Kong when we use the Flame Runner because Funky Kong has a speed bonus as opposed to other characters. And there's this other vehicle called the Spear, which is even faster than the Flame Runner, but it has worse drift, so it can't take as sharp a turns. So certain courses with very sharp turns, we won't be using the Spear, and we'll be using either the Flame Runner or even a different character, Daisy, who can take even sharper turns than the Flame Runner.
Interesting. That is one thing that I always find intimidating about racing games is I'm never sure which character to use if I'm doing speed things with them. It's nice to see that you're usually sticking to 1, 2, or 3 characters.
Yeah.
So the next one we're going to show off is also one of the more recent tasks that have been worked on, and it's still being improved. It's actually been improved by, I think at this point, almost another 1.2 seconds. But essentially, the glitch strategy is the exact same. So for all intents and purposes, this is still representative of what an optimal version of this glitch would be like. So play. So this is on Mushroom Gorge. So this is going to be the first ultra glitch that you're going to see. He's going to turn around, go up on the mountain, go over the finish line, and he's still in key checkpoint region 0, and he just barely crosses into the last key checkpoint of the lap, so the game counts it. And he can do this over and over again. Go back to the finish line, go back to the last key checkpoint, and swing back around and cross the finish line, and that's the entire race. So this is drastically different from what humans do. Humans, right now, the record uses, I believe, a baby character, possibly Baby Mario and the Quacker, as well as the Wii Wheel. And they actually turn to the right the entire time to go around the mountain and then turn left when they get to the finish line. Kind of repeat that process. What this task did is it hopped and tricked on the same frame that they were leaving the mushroom right before they got onto the mountain. And what that does is that locks your horizontal rotation. And from there, you get onto the mountain and you're essentially spinning out of control. And you can manipulate that by tilting up and down on the analog stick to do either a nosedive or a tail dive. And you can essentially swing yourself around to the back side of the mountain, get the checkpoint, go back to the finish line over and over again. So this is about I want to say a 4. Well, I guess with his improved task, it's maybe like a 4.5 second improvement over the current human world record, which is still pretty crazy considering how short this track is.
Yeah, that was really impressive. And the physics on the mountain look very strange. Is that well understood, or is it sort of just trial and error when you're tazzing the mountain physics?
Oh, okay. With this, sorry for interrupting you. With this strategy, this is pretty much just trial and error. I've tried to do what they did in this video. It's very hard to go far back enough to hit the checkpoint and go back to the finish line after that over and over.
As far as the mountain physics go, you can only do that if you're coming from a mushroom with boost. So you can't just like go to the mushroom, trick off the mushroom, hit the wall, and do the glitch. You need to, like, shrooming into the mushroom forever puts you at 100 units per frame, 100 speed units until you hit the ground. So the act of doing that, and I think the tricking also has an effect on the weird things you're seeing them hit the wall. Yeah.
Oh, I do know doing a side trick instead of an up or a down trick does cause you to interact with the wall differently. I'm not really sure why, but I just know it's a thing.
Yeah, that's so weird. I would be very confused if I was trying to test that. Okay, what's the next track we're looking at?
So I think we've decided to also show off the Mushroom Gorge no glitch tasks, because I feel like that shows off mushroom trick mushroom abuse. And additionally, the task itself is really cool to watch. It's executed really well, I think. So I'll hit play on that.
Alrighty.
Right off the bat here, they can hop over the grass patch and hit these 2 mushrooms.
And as far as we know, this strat at the beginning was only faster because of mushroom abuse. Like we had known about that for a while, but only recently started using it because of mushroom abuse, especially on the second shroom. So if you watch his speed without mushroom abuse, you'd be wanting to see a number like 73. That's the only one we thought was possible previously, but you see his number go up to 88 there.
Derek, do you know who ended up discovering mushroom abuse or no?
Yeah, I think it was Luigi.
Okay.
Zak had mentioned he had seen it in custom tracks before, but I feel like he was just referring to like a boost pad before a mushroom in a custom track.
Oh, I should also specify that the glitch task that we watched right before this, it was made by somebody by the name of Jellopuff and Estaloy.
So yeah, this run was made by Swear.
It's interesting to see how different some of the speeds are coming off the mushrooms. Like some are high 80s, some are low 80s.
When probably from lap to lap, there could be differences just due to quantum mechanics, for example. And then manipulating it, so like maybe it could be the case that sacrificing the time to get it to be consistent is maybe not worth it. So you really, when you're doing quantum mechanics and have that in mind when you're TASing, you have to make sure that the time losses you're doing are actually worth it.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, and I'd imagine there's a whole host of variables that are affecting that. How much speed you can get off them. And
definitely.
Yeah, the green ones looked very fast as well.
Yeah, so the green ones don't do anything to you. They act like normal ground.
Okay.
They don't. Yeah, they don't act as like ramps, for example.
Cool. And so, do you know how much time mushroom abuse saves in that? I'd imagine it's quite a bit, considering how many mushrooms there are.
I think the time has gone down over a second or so just from mushroom abuse.
Wow, that's incredible. And how much of a speed boost do you get from mushroom abuse again?
So I think we saw the numbers go up to 88, but it's normally
I saw 88.
Yeah, so 88 minus 73.
Very good.
So the next one we have is Toad's Factory. This course has been I've been really impressed with how this course has been optimized over the years. And the shroom strategy has changed a lot too, I believe. So he's about to shroom right after this conveyor belt, and this is not done by humans at all. You would never see somebody shroom there. I forget why he shrooms there. Derek, do you know more about that?
Yeah,
I think
so
I know
normally
more, but I'm not sure.
You'd be shrooming on the little conveyor section he passed recently, like the sideways conveyor belts. And you shroom there to avoid having to get what's called a luck wheelie, which is just a frame perfect re-input of a wheelie. But if you shroom where he does in the TAS, you're actually shrooming while drifting. And that's good because drifting makes you go 84, a whole 12 units of speed slower than wheeling. Whereas if you're shrooming while drifting, it only makes you go 3 units of speed slower than shrooming while wheeling. So it saves massive amounts of time. If you're at a loss of where to shroom, shrooming while drifting is always a great option.
And you'll see right here, he's doing what we call a wall trick. He's hitting the wall right before he goes off the ramp. If your angle when you hit it is just right, you can end up eliminating a lot of airtime.
Yeah, and it propels you forward too. So a little thing to note here is he's actually jumping when he hits the exit of that conveyor as opposed to just wheeling. And it's because jumping, the conveyor boosts you, it gives you a speed boost. And jumping actually preserves that boost instead of wheeling. The second you hit the ground after the conveyor, it reduces down.
That last turn there, hitting the tractor, is crazy.
So he's definitely...
It's sad that cycle... I don't think that's the best cycle for the lap 3, but, you can't do anything about it.
He's doing side trick abuse there on that last ramp as well. He's doing a side trick instead of an up or down trick, and then inputting the opposite direction on the analog stick.
That was a very satisfying one to watch. I do really like the tight lines on the double forward and back conveyor belt. That's really good to see.
Mm-hmm.
With the very last ramp over the mud, were they doing rapid fire hop abuse to get lower, or was that sort of the normal
Yes.
height you'd get?
No, that is very much lower than the normal height you get. You go very high. You can go above the finish line. I mean, you can't, go over it, but in height you go higher than the finish line.
Fascinating. So, even though they were using rapid fire hop abuse, it did look higher than the other one that we saw earlier onto the grass. Can you sort of control the height that you get off the ramp or not?
You can control a little bit, and again, it kind of boils down to quantum mechanics. So when you, the pixel that you start hopping on will affect how low you go, and also how long you press the trick button after exiting the ramp affects your height. But, I mean, the angle of the Moo Moo Meadows boost ramp that you saw we hit the grass on, the angle is just right so that we can hit the grass, whereas Toad's Factory, it's a different angle, and also there is no thing in front of you to make you just land instantly.
Interesting. So I'd assume that they're wanting to get past the mud though, because that might slow them down. Unless
It
the boost
won't actually.
does that.
The boost. So the boost ramp itself, right? The boost ramp has a boost pad, and yeah, that will give you some brief off-road immunity. But I think, as we've found, there's people who have gotten the trick ramp to be even lower on Toad's Factory, and they found
you can go a little bit lower, but it's not faster for some reason.
I
Yeah.
think it's because you are utilizing more boost frames in the air. You're utilizing the boost pad frames and then landing with the full trick boost, as opposed to Moo Moo Meadows when you just instantly touch the ground. So if anything, Moo Moo Meadows is the anomaly. We're not sure why that's faster to just land instantly.
Alrighty. Is it perfect off-road what's the word? Off-road safety that you get, or do you still slow down a tiny little bit off-road after a boost?
It's perfect. It's perfect off-road immunity. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's only from it's not from the active the trick boost, it's from the boost pad itself. So if that ramp doesn't have a boost pad and still gives you an incredible speed boost from the trick, it won't do anything. You'll just go in off-road.
Alrighty, what's our next track that we have coming up?
All right, so we're going to be showing off the second ultra glitch in the game. It's on Mario Circuit. So when you interact with trees on this course and in other tracks, like any kind of wall, you can basically boost into it, and if you do it at just the right angle with the right quantum mechanics, you can clip really high up into the air. So he hits the key checkpoint 0. He hit it right there underneath the tunnel. You can see that this track is a loop, and the path that he's going to is actually underneath where the finish line is. So he's actually going inside the same checkpoint that the finish line is contained in, even though he's at the end of the course. And then from there, he can just drive into the last key checkpoint, and it counts the lap because of that.
So this little speed boost he's getting when he's landing from the ground is called the standstill mini turbo. If you just stop in place and then press the drift and accelerate button at the same time, you get this so-called standstill mini turbo. And he charges it so fast, by the time he lands on the ground, he already has the standstill mini turbo.
Yeah, that one was very impressive. It's a good ultra shortcut. For the end, the racer was sort of going back and forth near the edge of the track. What's all that about?
So when you are on a surface at an angle and then hit a different surface at a different angle, it actually changes your direction. And a friend and I are thinking it might reflect something like Snell's law from physics. There's some interesting thing going on as far as how that new angle is being calculated. And we're hoping it has something to do with Snell's law, because then we can maybe predict like which directions you'll go based on how the surfaces are angled differently. There's a lot going on, but anyways, in any case, he's falling off the curb, but then the angle is changing, which will change his angle back to the left, and so then he'll point straight again. And then if he starts to point towards the right and fall off the curb, it'll just make him point to the left again. So he's kind of just stuck on the curb.
And yeah, that's not slower than avoiding that per se. I mean, I think technically it is because you're covering a slightly longer amount of distance, but yeah, that ends up usually being, the most optimal line you can take, just given what angle you're approaching the curb at and everything.
Yeah, it might not be possible to ride on the curb without that little bouncing back and forth happening.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so many subtle things that they're doing that it's very hard to pick up on all of them, for sure.
Definitely.
Alrighty, do we have a glitchless one of this track, or are we moving on to the next one?
Yeah, we decided not to show the... I think we're just going to move on.
It has another instance of like a boost ramp to use off-road immunity, just like the Moo Moo Meadows. And it's called the King Alex strat, but yeah.
So here's Coconut Mall. This trick abuses some collision detection bugs in the game. We don't really know how to explain it that well. So we get a low
I
trick.
had a theory recently, but this is the one track that seems to break the theory.
Yeah, so we end up hitting that wall and we get enough backwards momentum basically to go through a solid wall underneath the escalator, and now we're out of bounds. Here we're triggering the lap in front of the finish line because we need to follow the 95% rule that I mentioned earlier. And by doing so, we can hit the last key checkpoint. If we do it early enough, we can actually get a lap count, and we can drive straight into the finish line with a 30-second time. So this is actually what I'm helping to work on right now. So far, we have a 30.000, and we haven't been able to improve it further to go under 30 seconds. But I just found another improvement on the last turn of lap 2. So hopefully we're able to get a good lap 3, given that faster turn, and we'll see a 29-second time.
Is it easy to splice on lap 3 if you make that lap 2 improvement, or does all the pixels and subpixels mess it up?
Yeah, because it's quantum mechanics and our subpixel is ever so slightly different. We can't just copy paste inputs, but we can always look at our ghost. We can race against a ghost and try to recreate what that does. But yeah, it's very, very hard to do, I would say. So hopefully we're able to get a good lap 3, but we can't guarantee it right now. So we'll see.
Do you have a TAS where you can actually physically see the ghost while you're TASing, or do you more use scripts and numbers to check how you're going?
Yeah, so we're able to race against ghosts in the game, and there's a built-in, or not built-in, what am I talking about? Somebody made a cheat code called the TAS code. And so you can copy ghost inputs up until a certain point in time, and then you can essentially detach from the ghost and start, taking over control and racing against it. So that's what we do for the most part. But in this scenario, we have the 30.000 time, and I improved the last turn of lap 2. And I just wanted to save my progress. I wanted to save the improved turn. So what we can do now is we can use the Lewis script to play back my inputs while racing the 30.000. And then what we can do is we can race lap 3 and try to recreate what he does on lap 3. And so far, that seems like the best course of actions to try to improve the last lap.
Nice. Well, I hope you get the sub 30 soon. It does sound very promising.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we are going to show off the Coconut Mall no glitch TAS. I think that's one of the most entertaining no glitch TASs, I would say. This was made by Luke.
Luke is an amazing runner. This double banister trick he's doing was thought to be like so hard that one person thought the first person to do it was cheating.
And to be quite frank, yeah, it is very hard to do.
It's a lot of just quantum mechanics and stuff.
You'll see coming up right here, he's going to do another wall trick, get propelled forward, eliminate a lot of airtime.
And then he does something that we overlooked for a long time. He hits the boost pad on the left-hand side before we're just taking a tight turn and passing it up. No idea why people overlooked that. He's kind of hitting the invisible wall to propel him downward to reduce airtime there.
And additionally, you normally don't see human runners go down the middle there. They usually go to the right and go for the boost panel, but because you can get all those tricks with a really small amounts of airtime, that ends up being faster overall.
Yeah, he touches this boost ramp, or pad. Something I'll mention, there's what's called a slip drift is when you get a drift without having the hop, and it just comes from like a small amount of airtime. And so he utilizes a slip drift near the end of the lap. I'll point it out when it comes up. So up here, he smacks that wall in boost so it doesn't slow him down, and then the little airtime he gets from smacking the wall allows him to enter a slip drift. And slip drifts are great because they allow you to charge your mini turbo faster because there's less airtime. There's less hop time.
That movement was very satisfying in that level. I love all the wall pushes that he's getting.
Yeah.
It must be very difficult to get those without bonking.
I think execution-wise, like that's honestly one of the more entertaining tasks, I would say.
Definitely. Some of the wall pushes are purely like aesthetic purposes. Like one of the turns, he hits the wall and it doesn't slow him down, and it doesn't really make him go faster either. It's like a cheeky thing. Like, look at me, I can hit the wall without speed loss.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Taz's will get 1 pixel away from an enemy that would kill them and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. I think up next is DK Summit or DK's Snowboard Cross on the European version. I'm not sure why the names are different. And I would definitely say this is one of the more impressive tasks execution-wise as well.
So this track's gone full circle with vehicles. We started with Flame Runner for the longest time. Then the author, Zak, said, no, Spear is faster. And then he discovered wheelie triggers, which we'll see right now. He's wheeling while tricking. So he said, okay, actually Flame Runner's faster. And then he's realized that Spear's faster again, just because of this new strategy of doing the shortcut. So we'll probably mention the shortcut coming up. You originally had to drift into it, but now if you hit this ramp, this boost ramp to his right here, the act of like pressing down on the analog stick turns you to the right so much that you don't have to drift into that shortcut. You can just take that ramp and it aligns you perfectly. In any case, before, Spear had a lot of trouble doing that shortcut, the drift method. And now, with that new strategy, Spear has no trouble at all. So Spear is faster again on this course.
Yeah, the human world record is able to do what we call like a non-stop double shortcut, where I don't know if that's even the way to describe it. They don't go down to the path below. They're able to, just drift right off and then bounce on the edge before going into the chasm right there. But yeah, the way the task does it is absolutely insane.
That was another really good one. So what's the go with them riding up at the very top of those half pipes?
Malleo?
Oh, that's yeah. So what he's able to do is essentially stick to the side of the half pipe. So that blue, the blue strip on the top of the half pipe that has the arrows on it, those are what we call blue zippers. And when you go off of those and you land back down, you get a temporary speed boost. It's not as long of a speed boost from ramps as ramps would give you, but he essentially is going up the zipper and down the zipper incredibly fast as he goes around the entire turn. And yeah, so he's able to maintain. Is he wheeling during that, Derek, or would that only be about like 100 kilometers an hour as he's going through the turn?
He's wheeling during it, so he's doing 120.
Okay, so yeah, 120 units per frame, or units per second or whatever, as he goes around the entire turn over, just drifting around that entire turn. That and it ends up saving a tremendous amount of time.
Sorry, throughout the turn, he's probably doing a little bit of drifting and a little bit of wheeling as well. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it saves a tremendous amount of time over just drifting through the turn normally.
Yeah, I thought I saw it hitting 120 as well, so whatever he was doing, it must have been good. I'd imagine it would let you cut the corner a tiny bit tighter too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the European version being used for that. Is there any differences?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I just briefly mentioned that because the name is different on that course between regions. I'm not sure why. It's DK Summit on the American, the North American release, but for the European version, the PAL version, it's DK's Snowboard Cross. Not really sure why,
weird.
But
yeah. I don't know why they always change the names.
Yeah.
Is there many region differences though between
them? I actually don't know of any region differences, gameplay wise. Do you know of any, Derek?
Not that I can think of. The only thing I've noticed, this is kind of weird, but especially in maybe older versions of Dolphin, there was a strange difference between PAL and NTSC. The hop sound was very different.
Oh, I remember that. Okay.
And one time I started tazzing on the PAL sound because I enjoyed the sound of the hop on PAL.
But I think it was just an emulator inaccuracy that did get fixed over time.
It was probably just an emulator thing.
All right. And does PAL run at 60 frames a second on this game as well?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a bit later, so they probably got their act together with that silly 50 frames a second stuff. Can't stand that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, very good. So what's our next track coming up?
All right, so this is going to be the fourth ultra shortcut in this game. It's on Wario's Gold Mine. So again, we're going to be going from key checkpoint 0 back to the last key checkpoint. You can actually turn around, bounce off of these pipes, and pop back up. We go into the last key. Actually, no, that's a little bit of a lie. We actually have to go inside part of the cave. There's some additional trigger there that doesn't entirely have to do with checkpoints. Derek might know more. I believe this test was made by him.
I think that's where, that was made by me. That is where the fourth checkpoint is. And we're smacking the wall past the checkpoint, but the act of smacking the wall gives us enough air, and we use that air to propel ourselves all the way to the fourth checkpoint.
Yeah, that way we can charge up a mini turbo earlier and release it faster by the time we land, turn around completely.
I really love those wall smacks.
Yeah.
So you said about hitting the checkpoint with them, Derek?
Yeah. So we're utilizing that wall for two things. One, to charge a mini turbo, and so we want to make sure we hit it in a way so that we actually charge a standstill mini turbo. We're also using the wall to jump ourselves into the checkpoint, as opposed to just aiming towards the checkpoint, slowing down in it, and then turning around. That actually takes a lot more time than just instantly bringing ourselves to 0 speed, put ourselves in a standstill scenario, and then also turning around is faster too. Physically rotating the bike around is quicker as well.
I love when stuff like that ends up being faster for turning around.
Yeah, and the same thing is actually used on the pole at the finish line as well. We hit the pole at the finish line to put ourselves in standstill. When you're in standstill, your bike rotates very quickly, and then we rotate ourselves to align for the glitch again. That was a strategy discovered by Deadly Frame Dumps.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. It reminds me of my strategy for a lot of Gran Turismo Need for Speed games used to be just to ride the walls rather than trying to actually take the corner. So it kind of reminds me of that sort of thing. I love it when it's actually faster.
One thing I'll mention about that especially the pole, the finish line pole, and crashing into it just like at the wall. It's the one thing I think is holding back a cart from having the Taz world record here. A bike can do this pull clip, but carts cannot. But otherwise, if carts can, they could be just straight up faster than the bike.
Oh, wow. Are there any other instances where carts are faster?
In real time, carts are faster on Rainbow Road, but sadly, Taz allows us to do lots of things that humans cannot, so it ends up being faster with bikes anyway.
Oh, poor carts. Is there any interest in tazzing the carts to see how fast they are, or do you basically just pick the fastest thing and go with that for all your tazzing?
That's what Dylan's doing right now. Dwayne B. He's focusing right now on cart tasks, and they're cool to watch, but it doesn't have as people aren't as interested in cart tasks, I don't think, just because that's not the meta. That's not what people are used to, playing with and watching. So
it's
that
what
might be
I
part of the
started with.
drawback.
Yeah, I actually started with cart tazes a long time ago, and then I started doing bike ones. I just enjoyed watching cart tazes more than bike, and then eventually changed my mind, and now I enjoy both. But I think the course that maybe bike and cart come the closest besides Goldmine Glitch is DK Summit. We theorize a 140-second time to be possible on DK Summit with cart.
That could be a good way for new people to join the tazzing community as well if they want to try out some kart tazzing, get some Taz records. I'm not sure if you guys would agree, but I mean, that's probably where I'd go. On the other hand, you do want to compare to the bike times to make sure you're not missing any speed tag.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance.
Yeah.
Alrighty, what's our next one we're going to look at?
So we're going to show off a work in progress of the Wario's Goldmine No Glitch tasks. I think progress is slow just because of quantum mechanics trying to deal with the bats, as you're going to see. And I'm sure Derek can explain that when we get to it. So he's able to get a slip drift here. How do you describe that, what he just did there, Derek? He drifted to the right and then went left.
So he was able to get a slip drift in the first place. If you wheelie fast enough after your start boost, you just get this little bounce that allows you to... Yeah. So I'll just mention what he did there is he bumped into a bat, which normally slows you down to 50. Very slow. However, a long time ago, I found that it's possible to hit the bat and have it preserve your speed completely. I call it the bat clip. And no one believed me that it would be faster until this guy Gisbert, finally showed it was faster. But yeah, back to the startup thing. He does that slip drift to the right from this wheelie thing and then uses another drift to cut over that chasm. Yeah. It's a very intense Taz to make. I think this might be one of the hardest to do in terms of execution.
Do you know how long he's been working on it for?
I mean, years, but not like on. He works on it on and off. Probably several, 20 hours, more than that, 40 hours maybe. The bat clip especially is a very precise trick. There's more than just quantum mechanics. There's the location vertically of the bats affects it as well. And he's trying to work on the bat clip lap 2, and we just don't even know if it's possible. And so he's kind of at an impasse right now.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it done eventually. And hopefully once he's done the first lap, the other two will be a little bit easier to get done.
So the next track is going to be Daisy Circuit. No ultra shortcut or anything, but the lines on this task are pretty impressive. This was made by a tasker named Monster,
who's he's a new addition to the community.
Yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere, and he's really good, I would say. He helped work on Luigi's Circuit No Glitch, and he helped out a lot with the Luigi Circuit Supergrind task.
So these cones reduce your speed, but they also make you take turns tighter, so there's a balance of hitting cones and not hitting cones.
So this turn coming right up here, you can release your mini turbo and go into another drift, and you get enough air time to be able to bounce over the dirt. And I think these cones respawn every lap, just about. Yeah, so he has to hit them every time.
Yeah.
In an actual race against other people, I'm pretty sure those cones stay wherever you move them to.
If
Or
you
if you knock
hit
them
them at a
out.
slow enough speed, it actually just moves them, like it slides them, and then they stay in that position forever.
Okay. Yeah, as far as I think, like there's no way to manipulate to a way to for the game to think that you hit them slower so that they move out of the way instead of disappearing. But
Yeah.
mhm. And if you look at the consistency on that too, lap 2 and 3 are only 0.003 seconds off.
Yeah, very good run.
That was good. I wonder, it would be funny if it was worth slowing down really slow to hit the cones on the first lap, so that lap 2 and 3 would be faster.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
That is worth to do on for setting up the fast lap tasks.
Yeah.
Before you go into the second lap to do the fastest lap, you would move the cones out of the way.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much time that saves by doing that, but it is helpful.
The speed was dropping quite a bit, so it looks like it would save a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So I think up next we have Koopa Cape. This task is fairly old, I think. It might be from 2014, but it's still pretty impressive. There is still some time to shave off. But... So he was able to do rapid fire hop abuse there to stick a little bit lower. He uses it here as well, and on the next ramp. So he can release a mini turbo and wheelie, and he's able to get enough airtime to cut off a lot of that turn.
It looks a lot slower for a while, but it is very fast. So that strategy, we used to just skip less of that thing and then land on waterfall immediately as opposed to off-road. This strategy of cutting off more but landing on off-road saves a second, maybe even more. This time has gone down a lot thanks to Zak here. He used to be in around a 2:16, and then Zak said, no, 2:10 is possible.
The strats when you go into this pipe section as well, it's really bizarre. No human, does something like this. You ride up on the side of the wall, and then to redirect your angle and face the right way, you have to hop a bunch.
And the hop timing is like, it's seemingly random. I mean, there's probably some specifics of when you need to do it, but we don't have the pattern like memorized. For example, Zak might have the pattern memorized.
Yeah, and he hops right before hitting that ramp, just to get a little bit less airtime. And then I guess what's coming up here again, you could probably categorize this as a wall trick. He hits the side to get like no airtime, and he also gets a trick.
Yep.
And there you have it. And again, at the start of this race, he wasn't able to do a slide to the right or anything because I think it has to do with the fact that the road is sloped upwards. Yes. So you're not able to slide at all.
Yeah, that's as far as I know as well.
Yeah, it was a very good one. I like that he said 2:10's possible and then got a 2:10.
Yeah.
So I noticed as well lap 2 and 3 were quite different in timing. Do you know what might be causing such a variation?
Oh, because in lap 3 he gets to align just straight towards the finish line as opposed to aligning towards the ramp at the beginning of the next lap. There's no next lap to worry about. And then that will be often the case. Like lap 3 will often be faster, and then depending on the course it could be very faster.
Yeah, that's something I find funny about watching racing game tasks. I always expect lap 2 and 3 to be the same time, but that's often definitely not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lap 1 is always slower because you start behind the finish line and you start at 0 speed, and the speed up you get, like the boost you get at the beginning, doesn't save time. It's straight up slower. It's very slow acceleration, actually.
Yeah, I think you usually end up losing like 0.2 seconds just because of you're starting behind the finish line for lap 1.
Yeah, it looked like it matched that one there as well.
The next one we're going to show off is Maple Treeway Glitch. This task was it was released at the beginning of 2019, so that's relatively new. We start off by going backwards. We're going to drive out of bounds. This is an ultra shortcut, so we're going to stay within key checkpoint 0, and we're going to skip past key checkpoint 1. You can clip this tree, maintain enough height, clip this wall, go up to the shortcut path, drive to the cannon. So because we skipped past key checkpoint 1 and it still thinks we're in key checkpoint 0, we can actually go off this little ramp right here, cut off the entire path around and up the tree, and make our way to the finish line, and it counts the lap. Rapid fire hop abuse there to get a low trick. And that strategy going into the out of bounds section where we did what we call a spin drift to the left, bounce off that wall. I think a taster by the name of RS Extreme, who helped work on this, he ended up finding that, and it's so impressive. It's unlike anything a human would ever do. I forget how much time it saves.
You want to explain low cannon tricks?
Oh, yeah. I call it a low cannon trick. So if you see, we hit the wall right before we went into the cannon. That causes a significant drop in our speed. And that causes us to get released from the cannon at a much lower speed, and we end up losing airtime a lot faster as well, I'm pretty sure. And that just
allows you to line better.
Yeah, it just gives you a much better alignment for the path towards the ramp. And so this was an improvement of I think it was 5 seconds.
Yeah,
5.2 seconds or something over my previous record. And I aimed to beat it. I was going to work on it by myself. I aimed to beat that record by about 2 seconds because I knew some things could be done faster. But then, I had 5 other people say like, "Hey, can I help out?" And we ended up having like I think this was the first major collaboration in Mario Kart Wii tasking. And thanks to those people, we helped shave it down by an additional 3 seconds. And I can say this is probably one of the most optimal ultra shortcut tasks out there.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can manage to coordinate 6 people to work on it. That's really impressive.
Mm-hmm. We are in different time zones, I believe. I know Thomas and Swear are European. I forget if Rocky is. I think Rocky's European. Yeah, so we have 3 Europeans and we have 3 Americans. So it ends up working out well so that we can get a lot of work done within 24 hours. And yeah, between like sending off the run back and forth, we can always tell who's farther ahead just because we can always be racing against the current best ghost. And so whoever has an improvement, we'll send that off to other people. We'll try to get another improvement, and we just keep going.
Yeah, it definitely makes it better with different time zones and stuff. And yeah, it just really impresses me that you can coordinate that. But yeah, it's really great to see that many people working on it as well, though.
It's really nice to see that too, seeing as how like Mario Kart Wii had a really long stretch where it wasn't very active. There weren't a lot of people participating and making new records. But 2019 is kind of like the revival for Mario Kart Wii tasking. I don't know how many records we've already beaten this year. I know we have at least probably like 7 or 8 new records just from this year. I think that might be a little bit of an overestimate, but
there's quite a few.
Yeah.
Oh, that's huge. That's really good to hear.
And we still got more coming for the rest of the year, so that'll be exciting.
Nice. Looking forward to it. So what's our next one coming up?
So we feel that the glitch on Maple Treeway leaves out a lot of the normal strats for the no glitch category, so we'll be showing this off. It's by a taster named Lame Join. So this is the normal shortcut path you would take. And like I mentioned earlier, Thomas found a way to skip, going up to the actual shortcut path and just land on the path right before the cannon by doing a wall clip. But yeah, that was deemed. I still don't know if we're all in agreement of what it is.
I'm not sure. It was actually LameJoin that found it a very long time ago, but we threw his idea out. We were like, no, that's a glitch. So here's a wall trick here. It's very appealing.
What he did before the wall trick, I'll re-explain that on the next lap.
Yeah,
I think, and there's another wall trick as well. Now you might notice that ramp strategy where he did a wall trick, that was not what we did for the glitch category, and they're roughly the same speed, but I think the rapid fire hop abuse on the ramp for us just ended up giving us a better angle for the entry into the out of bounds area. So he can abuse the gravity mechanics on that tree trunk by taking the turn really wide, and he can cut off that turn right there. He has to land pretty wide though. He has to land pretty wide to make sure he hits the checkpoint. Otherwise, it won't count the lap if you take it too tightly.
I'm going to point out something after the cannon. It's pretty absurd. He's drifting left on a right drift. So coming right up here, he's drifting left on a right drift. And so apparently drifting right there makes you turn wider, and it makes you take a sharper turn to drift to the left. And that sometimes makes sense on a kart. It has never made sense on a bike. And
that's definitely one of the most bizarre things I've seen. There you have it.
That's a very good one. I'm very surprised at how close it is to Ultra Shortcut comparatively.
Yeah. Just for the Ultra Shortcut category, because we have to go out of bounds, do all the shenanigans with clipping the tree just to land back on the track before the cannon. The major time save just comes from cutting off the upper tree area. So because we have to set up everything for the Ultra Shortcut, it doesn't save as much time as you'd think. But to compare against the real-time glitch record, I think the glitch time our glitch task is about 35 seconds faster than human record. Just for some comparison.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the human no glitch time is. I haven't followed regular time trials in a while. It might be a 2:14 or a 2:15, I want to say. I don't know if that's an overestimate.
Yeah, I think it's around a 2:15 maybe.
Okay.
I can check that right now. 2:15.639.
Okay. So he's just under 10 seconds ahead for the no glitch run.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy the left drift, right drift thing. That was funny.
It sounds so counterintuitive, but yeah, it works somehow.
That's the good thing about having so many eyes on a game as well, because you've got so many people looking at it. Some of them might try counterintuitive stuff that you wouldn't think of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right, so I think up next we're going to show off the Grumble Volcano TAS. This is an ultra shortcut. So right at the beginning, he's going to turn around to the left side, and shroom up to the rock. We can use this rock to go around the finish line checkpoint, and we can just come out right at the last key checkpoint of the map and just do that over and over again. And then we can use our shroom right into the finish line. So a couple things to mention. This has been improved, but it's not released yet. I don't know if they want us saying what kind of an improvement it is. But it's very significant for a track this short. And then in addition, the bit bike was used. The bit bike's actually the wrong vehicle to use for this, and they improved it with the Quacker, which has a better acceleration stat, I think, and it's an inward drifting bike instead of an outward drift like the bit bike. So because of that, you can use the Quacker to go around the rock a little bit faster. Therefore. But I think the bit bike was used just because it has the best handling stat, which is turning without being in a drift. That's how tight your turning radius is. So that's what the human record does, just because the bit bike, the handling boost is so much better for human runs.
So with using Baby Mario, that's mainly for acceleration and handling stuff that they do that.
Yeah, I think Baby Mario is an accelerate. No, I forget. It's either acceleration or handling boost. I forget which one he has.
He's definitely got handling.
And with the end of it, I noticed that they go straight at the finish line. That seemed really weird to me. I thought it would be better to keep going around the rock. I guess they do get to boost at the finish line though.
Yeah, that always looks a little bit slow. I think it's just because you can use the mushroom a lot earlier. Although you do have to, end up taking a wider turn than you would like. I think because you have that speed boost, it's ultimately faster to do that.
Yeah, this game loves counterintuitive fast stuff. I like it.
Yeah, especially if you notice he drifted to the right, but that was for a left drift.
Yeah, he drifted to the right, but on an outward drift, it temporarily gives you like leftward propulsion. So he uses the right drift to make himself go to the left.
I'm sensing a theme here.
that's a common theme on outward drifting bikes, but that's the crazy thing about the previous course is it's not an outward drifting bike. So why does that work at all?
All right. The next one we're going to show off is Dry Ruins. This is one of the most impressive courses to watch, I would say. I know Derek previously worked on this, but it's since been improved by a tasser named Michi.
Yeah, I held the world record for a while, and then Michi said, "You're wrong about the vehicle choice here. Speed is faster."
And this shroom strat's a lot different than what humans do. If you notice, he used the shroom to cut off the turn right after the bridge.
There's a reason why.
Yeah, Spear is awful at taking that turn instead of using the shroom. And here, he's able to get up to this shortcut path without using
the mushroom. So that's why he's able to use the other mushroom for something else.
So you can see here, he has to take the turn
pretty wide.
He made it work out well.
He made it work pretty well, and this is why I didn't want to try using Spear. I just didn't think it would be faster at all when I made my run. My run was a collaboration with Gisbert, who is working on the Wario's Gold Mine No Glitch.
So yeah, approaching that gap right there, if you do it at the right angle, you can get enough airtime to completely cut off that last turn.
Yep. Right angle, and then there's some quantum mechanics involved.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to explain this. If you trick at the right angle and cancel your wheelie at the right time, you can stick to the wall through the turn.
Yep. So this is like one of the most prevalent quantum mechanics things, that temple exit rapid fire hop, which sends them down at such a downward angle. When I first found that strategy, I didn't find it, but when I first was trying to do it took me like 10 hours, and now that I know how to do it, it takes like 5 minutes. And it's just such a massive pain with the pixel you have to be at to start the rapid fire hop.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be very precise to do that level. And the stick to the wall was really nice to see. I've been noticing as well with the, what's up with the timers in these test videos?
Oh, sometimes the timer shows our speed.
Okay, I thought it might have been something weird like that.
Yeah, and that's just a what we call a gecko code. It's just a cheat code that you can use, and it just replaces the milliseconds with an address in the game that represents our speed. Yeah.
And now that we have like Lewis scripting and other things, we just show off our speed somewhere else.
Nice. Yeah, I thought that looked weird. Does it still sync without the gecko code on?
Yes. That's one thing that we focus on a lot. These tasks, we want them to be console verifiable, so we don't want to violate the integrity of the playback of the ghost data. So yeah, even if you don't have the cheat code enabled, the ghost is back fine. This is also one thing I'd like to touch on as well. There's a rapid fire hop cheat code that we actually use on. I used on Luigi Circuit because it makes it makes hopping 30 times per second a lot more efficient. But it's important to note that you can play back the ghost without using that cheat code. It's not the best way to think about the code is that it's intercepting the inputs sent from the controller to the game before the game understands what's being pressed. So all the button inputs are still valid. It's just that they're being changed between the GameCube controller and when the game is interpreting it.
So it kind of intercepts it like an auto-fire controller would or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's the best way of putting it.
Now, most Tazers might ask us, why don't you just right-click the jump button in Taz input? And the answer is sometimes that doesn't accurately hop every other frame. That might have been fixed recently, but as far as I think
it's been fixed actually.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just easier, especially when you're dealing with super grinding, I would say.
Yeah, and it led to the analog stick thing as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I forgot to mention. I hope it's okay that we're explaining this really late, but also with super grinding, when you're turning to the right or to the left, I guess, if there's a scenario like that presents itself, when you're turning, you actually have to alternate the analog stick back to neutral every other frame in phase with the hop button being pressed on and off. Otherwise, you rotate too much, and that's going to cause you to pop out of the floor a lot sooner. So you won't be able to super grind for as long.
Yeah, that was
sorry for that late explanation.
I'm sure a lot of people would have seen the video anyway. So
yeah,
that's all right. With rapid hop as well, I was wondering earlier as well about pause buffering it. Is that a thing? Could you hop faster if you pause buffered it, like BLJs?
I don't think you can use the in-game pause, but if you press the Wii Home menu, it might be possible. I think there's some, if you press the pause button, like the in-game pause button, it prevents you from inputting certain things, and you definitely can't re-pause every other frame. But you might be able to Wii Home menu every other frame. So
yeah, like when you close out of the pause menu in game, you can't re-pause until maybe half a second later. So you would already have to have done 15 hops before you're allowed to pause again. So yeah, I don't think it would be useful. The Wii menu though is a good idea, but I don't know how effective that would be.
Okay, and that probably stops people from pause buffering it in real time as well.
Yeah, and then the real time community is kind of strange. They have possibly they maybe have the capability of pause buffering or Wii Home buffering rapid fire hop, but they've chosen to instead just ban Wii Home buffering from being used in real-time runs. So it's kind of strange.
I didn't actually know there was a official jurisdiction on that.
Yeah, I think a similar thing happened in DK64 about a year ago as well, with the Wii U Home menu.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, people don't like the Wii Home menus, I guess. Alrighty, what have we got coming up next?
All right, we're going to move on to the Moonview Highway. This is anxiety-inducing. He's going to be dodging cars left and right. It's pretty similar to the human record, I would say. There's nothing too crazy. I will say... Yeah, triple trick at the beginning. I forget if the shroom strategy is different. I think the shroom strategy is actually different than the human record, and this is different. Normally, the human records go all the way to the left when entering the highway after the toll plaza, but Luke actually stays to the right. And here he's getting those drifts by getting a really minute amount of airtime that allows him to pull off a slip drift. So yeah, he does the triple trick again. Here he goes to the left. Yeah.
I have no idea why.
I think it just has to do with the angle at which he was approaching the toll plaza, because to avoid the one milk truck or whatever, the fruit truck, on the turn after the triple trick, he had to fix his alignment. So I guess it just set him up bad
at the beginning there, because if he does too well, he'll end up crashing into a car later on.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting point to mention. Right here, this blue car, that's limiting improvement for this track. there is going to be a hard limit, unfortunately, unless we think of something different.
For the longest time, we were stuck at a 142, and then finally Luke used some interesting strategies and the shroom strategy to get a 141.
It's a shame that there's a hard limit coming up on it. With the toll gates, is it possible to bonk into them, or do they always open as you're approaching?
They always open.
Oh, that's good.
And I'm not even sure if there's a solid hitbox on the, I forget what you call it, the arm that goes up. I don't think there's a solid hitbox.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it almost looked to me for a second like he was just barely making it before it opened, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the same toll booths on DK Summit.
Oh yeah, right before the cannon. Next, we're going to show off Bowser's Castle. The first shortcut, I don't think it's categorized as an ultra shortcut, but then there's an additional shortcut that I don't think is categorized as an ultra shortcut that was found relatively recent. So he's able to hop off the side, or drift off the... No, he's able to wheelie off the side of the ramp at the beginning and get a really low trick that propels you forward. I guess it's categorized as a wall trick.
Yeah. He does some strange thing there where he's like not wheeling and somehow it's faster. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, so that wall that he just went through, it doesn't have a solid hitbox. So if you just go up the side of that boost ramp, you can just drive right through the wall and skip the giant spiral.
Yeah, that's an example of a glitch that's not quite an ultra shortcut, but we'd still put this in like the glitch category. So over there, he's using side trick abuse all over the place. If you watch carefully on his speed, it, goes up to 109. So again, he does this really strange thing where he doesn't wheelie, and I can't remember why they said it was faster, but for whatever reason, it's faster.
Yeah, again, he's doing wall tricks here.
Wall trick right here. Saving his shrooms for a very special strategy at the very end. So I'd love to see our new XYZ speed on this run, because something amazing happens on the last lap at the very end. We think he goes well above the normal speed cap.
Oh,
like this game, the game seems to think that you can only go at most 120, but we've already demonstrated possibilities of past that with Supergrinding, for example.
So he did rapid fire hop abuse there, but he stopped it right before he hit the ramp, and that causes you to get ejected out of the floor with a lot of airtime. And he uses his mushrooms, drifts to the left, and flies through a wall that doesn't have a hitbox, and he's able to cut off the last turn.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that impressed me too is he hit the side of the wall towards the end. It got so much momentum redirected to the left.
Yeah.
Wow, that was really cool. So you need all 3 mushrooms to do that trick at the end, do you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Far
out.
It's
so close to be able to pull it off. And yeah, because of the rapid fire hop abuse required, I don't think that's never going to be done by a human. I don't think.
Yeah, and the ramp before the wall clip that was on all the laps was so weird as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we have the infamous Rainbow Road.
Here we go.
Yeah, so this is an improvement from a task that was made, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, but I think Estaloy made it in 2014.
I mean, he made it like a week or two after the glitch was discovered.
Yeah. So this task was made by RS Extreme. So he drifted on like the side of the downward path and was able to wheelie off of that and get a lot of momentum to cut off the first turn. This shroom strat is different from humans. Like Derek mentioned a lot earlier, it's best to use your shrooms if you don't have anywhere else to use them while you're drifting.
Yep.
Here you can do a little bit of a turn skip, and he goes to the side because the road is flat on the left side, and he can do rapid fire hop abuse there to get a low trick. It's really bumpy in the middle. It's hard to get a really good rapid fire hop low trick there. This turn skip's nuts. I love watching it every single time. That's basically the strat that karts do. They're able to cut off that first turn, but since we have a way to do that with a bike, the bikes just dominate on this course for TASs. So the glitch is going to require 2 shrooms, so you'll see he's not going to use one here. What's nice, though, is since he used the shroom so late, when he goes to make a no-glitch TAS, he can just use the beginning of the ghost up to the middle of lap 2 for the no-glitch time. So here he's able to hit the solid wall right here, turn around, do a spin drift to the right, and just barely land by the end of the track. And it counts the lap because you're going from key checkpoint 0 to the last key checkpoint of the game. And there you go. I helped work on the glitch itself. And it's funny to note that this the lap 3 is faster than my fast lap time because his turnaround strategy was so much faster, where he hit the wall to cancel all of his forward momentum and then did a standstill and turned around. It's crazy to see that in full speed.
That's the first time I've seen that run. That was incredible.
That's so impressive. Yeah. Wow.
And again, that's a 7-second improvement over the current record. We're trying to improve enough to get under a 145, but it's gonna be close. We'll see when it's actually finished.
The even the no glitch stuff in the first 2 laps was so cool to see, just kind of like the front wheel on the track and then the back of the bike completely hanging off. It's really funny.
Yeah.
And the skip is amazing. That's a really good one.
Mm-hmm. So the next one we're going to show off is Peach Beach from... Oh yeah, we're moving on to retro tracks now. So tracks that were recreated from older Mario Kart games. So this track is going to abuse a lot of wall clipping. You'll see we can skip 1 checkpoint. He's not skipping through a key checkpoint, so it's still going to count as lap, I believe.
Yeah. I was the one that actually did that first wall clip there, but he made everything else on the run.
And here you can do a non-stop clip with this tree and land right underneath the finish line.
So that process of landing, you hit the ground with a lot of, and you also crash into the wall, and then you can like do some hops, and it like preserves your speed a lot. So you'll see it again here. Sends him to the side very fast.
You got really lucky with the water cycle. It wasn't high tide.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that probably would have costed some time.
Is the water cycle, does it always start in the same spot when you start the race?
Yeah, it's consistent.
Oh, that's cool.
And so you'll see in the no glitch records, people will have to coordinate their mushroom usage to counter like when the high tide comes.
Oh yeah, that would be lots of trial and error, I'd imagine. Be kind of frustrating to test it, I would think.
Oh yeah, I guess at this point it's gotten optimally enough where like we know where the water cycles are going to be and when. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of trial and error there involved.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any global cycles that aren't the same when you start the race, or any RNG or anything that you have to deal with?
Not that I know of. Otherwise, your ghosts wouldn't sync up.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Okay. If we're gonna go into this territory, I've had it occasionally happen where a ghost on Delfino's Square would desync, and I think it has to do with the drawbridge, and I don't know why. I don't think it's RNG, but I don't think any of us know why it happened. No, it was on console. It was on it happens to me on console.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
That's so weird.
I don't know why. It might be my game disc. I don't know if it's happened to other people. I think it has, but anyway,
I've seen some desyncs in the act of like hitting wigglers on Maple Treeway, but yeah,
I've heard of that as well.
Emulation thing.
I don't know. But regarding if we were to ever make a Grand Prix TAS, as in like racing against computer players and actually TASing all 32 tracks at once, I know the RNG for the race is it can be modified in the middle of the race, but otherwise you can modify it in between like loading screens in between races. But regarding time trials, there's no RNG or anything. Everything's cycle based at the start of the race.
Do you think there would ever be a Grand Prix TAS, like a full game completion?
We've definitely thought about it, and using the input reader and writer script that I made, we could work on tracks individually, and try to, sew them all together into one recording file. The problem with that is, desyncs due to different RNG. Like we have to avoid getting hit by blue shells, lightning and stuff like that. But I think we could use that as a method, along with some RNG manipulation to theoretically create a 32-track TAS. We've definitely all had it in the back of our heads that we want to, but I think right now we're still focused on individual levels.
It's all like inspired from Drew Weatherton's Mario Kart 64 TAS, but the nice thing about that game is the item system is so much better to work with. Like, for example, you can actually get mushrooms in first place, and these are not things we can have in Mario Kart Wii.
Oh, yeah, that would be pretty rough. I would be interested to see what kind of skips are and aren't possible between time trials and Grand Prix there. Could be good.
Oh, that actually is one interesting thing to bring up. Bump Fest is what we call it. If you take a really, really light character like Toad on the Quacker, and then you have someone like Bowser with the Piranha Prowler, which is this massive heavyweight cart, and if you're playing as Bowser and you use a boost and you ram into Toad or whatever other lightweight character, if you ram into them into a wall, they will go flying. They can go flying over top of invisible walls. There's actually footage, I'll try to find it and link it, of on DK Jungle Parkway before the actual glitch was discovered for time trials. You could skip a lap by being rammed over an invisible wall and hitting the last key checkpoint and skipping the entire course pretty much.
Wow, that sounds like such a good glitch. I'd be interested to see where that could go.
Yeah, we haven't experimented with it too much. I definitely think there might be other courses that have potential for that. But yeah.
Alrighty, what have we got up next?
All right, so first we're going to show off the Mario Raceway 3-lap TAS. This was made by a TASer named Grim. So he's able to get enough airtime to get a slip drift right at the beginning. Yeah, most of this track is just going to consist of tight lines avoiding the grass.
This shroom spot is very difficult in real time.
Mm-hmm. Normally, you wouldn't go in front of that first piranha plant. You'd go behind it, but it saves a lot of time to go in front of it.
So this is a recent optimization of tricking on the left side first, and then the right side after, before we do tricks on both the right side.
And as you can see, the consistency on this is pretty good, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why we, for the longest time, we did both tricks on the right side. I'm not sure why that was the case.
I don't know. I think that there's a theme of we
overlook things.
Yeah, we overlook things.
Yeah. We also have a unreleased glitch that we haven't shown off yet, but I'll say it's come about because we've overlooked things.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure when we're going to release that. We'll probably wait until we release a 3-lap TAS on that track to show it off. We're not sure when we'll be done with it though. All right, so that was Mario Raceway.
That was a good one. It's funny that you mentioned that things get overlooked. I don't think any one person could find all the things, no matter how good they are, really. There's just some stuff that's counterintuitive that you don't think to try.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's why I'm really glad we have a lot of people in the community that are able to help find stuff like this. Yeah.
Show the flap.
Sure thing. So again, like the process to like this is slow, this entire turn. But once he gets to the straightaway and he passes the finish line, now we're at full speed. And he can end the hopping right before he goes off this mountain, gets a tremendous amount of airtime, and is able to skip over the entire turn there. One interesting thing to mention is that he's using the middleweight Funky Kong plus Flame Runner instead of, heavyweight Funky Kong plus Flame Runner instead of Daisy with the Mach Bike. I think that just comes down to it's faster for the super grind, and already Funky and Daisy are pretty much tied for this track.
Yeah, but that shroom spot you can only do a Daisy, but since you're aligning, you have such a different angle towards the shroom spot.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it either. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's very good to see super grinding in action there. And so that would be used in a full race TAS now, the super grind.
It should be, yeah, because a TAS without shrooms is at a certain speed, so that I think even with the setup of the super grind, it's still faster to do this in a full 3-lap run.
Oh, you think it would be?
Yeah, someone was mentioning it.
Okay. I don't know. I just had an assumption in my head that it wouldn't be faster. That's okay. Continuing along with the theme of we tend to overlook things. I think we should look into it.
Yes,
and we'll see if it works out. But yeah, maybe we could even cut off some of that turn, but not all of it, with one shroom going over the mountain. But I don't know how well that would work because then he wouldn't be able to take the normal shroom spot. Yeah, we'll see. All right. So I think next up we're going to show off Sherbet Land for the N64. So we're not showing off the fastest TAS because the current fastest has the video quality is really low.
There's like 5 pixels.
Yeah, and optimal TAS, and neither is this. It's still decently improvable.
It's good to see
so,
what the glitch is.
Yeah. The first thing to note is that we're seeing a character that we haven't seen yet, Dry Bowser. I don't think this is the most optimal character. I think Funky's still better for this track. But the argument that Casey made while making this task was that Dry Bowser has better off-road stat, I believe, and a better drifting stat, so that makes it a lot easier to turn and navigate through the ice on this track. Oh, he does the glitch on lap 2, right? So he does a pole clip such that he doesn't land inside like the backside of key checkpoint 0. He's able to just barely land behind key checkpoint 0. He backs up to go into the last key checkpoint of the lap, and he's able to get the lap count. But yeah, spear driving on this course is really silly to watch, just because of how wide you end up going for some turns. But
if we can manage to get this glitch done with Magic Cruiser, which is a very good off-road bike, we could save another 2 or so seconds.
I think the problem just arises because the distance you have to cover after clipping the finish line pole, it's so large that it really only seems like Spear has been able to work so far. But there's definitely some room to experiment some more.
So that skip can only be done on one of the laps because of the mushroom requirements, right?
True, yeah. The mushrooms go away when you fall into the abyss.
Oh, do they? Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's one thing
Mario
to
Kart
note.
64.
Yeah.
And with the new TAS, does the new TAS still use Dry Bowser?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. It's nice to see some other characters in there, though. I do like when it's not, when it's different.
So I guess we can show off Shy Guy Beach now. Speaking of characters that we haven't seen, not in this task, but this track used to go back and forth with the human record between Toadette and the Magic Cruiser and Funky and the Spear. Because Toadette could go through this grass patch to the left to go a lot tighter. But it ultimately ends up with Spear being faster.
QM hell here.
Yeah.
So the most prevalent quantum mechanics is probably on this track, where you'll just see him wheelie over these pieces of water, which slow you down, by the way.
Like right here.
You just manage to get the right bounces based off quantum mechanics so that you can just wheelie through it. And this part especially is a nightmare.
Especially with that drift, too. That's crazy.
In a normal like RTA run, you'd be hopping over each puddle.
I think we got really lucky that the crabs weren't in our way at all.
So I'll just mention, you heard the bike maybe do a little weird sound. He braked for a frame to manipulate his position for quantum mechanics.
Oh, I forgot about
puddles.
that. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, look at the consistency on that as well. Lap 2 and lap 3, 6 milliseconds off.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really impressive, especially with all the quantum mechanics stuff as well. Yeah, it was really cool to see him go over the puddles without having to hop, and that the quantum mechanics stuff lined up nicely with that as well.
Anybody whoever has tried to do that, like they'll know that is incredibly difficult to do.
Probably one of the more precise things in the game for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think next we're going to show off DS Delfino Square. This task was made by Luke. It uses a shortcut by the dock that I don't think is RTA viable. I'm not 100%.
It's not like viable 3 times in a row. People have done it for sure, but it's pretty tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It might be used in the current fastest flap.
He goes down the left path here. I think RTA still goes down the right path.
It's for alignment purposes towards this dock cut right here that he just did.
Yeah, he's able to get a tremendous amount of airtime by wheeling at the right angle.
So there's a wheelie trigger. He rapid fire hopped, and then the next portion, like the other side of the dock, is so close to him that he just tricks and then wheelies and gets a wheelie trigger.
And you can see he's bonking the wall a couple of times just because he's taking incredibly tight lines. And you'll notice he does a different dock strategy pretty much every lap, just because the bridge, the drawbridge is at a different position every lap.
Yep.
It's funny that he consistently bonks that wall like all 3 laps as well.
Yep.
Because he's just showing off. It's cool though.
Oh man.
I think if that bridge was any lower that lap, he wouldn't have been able to get a trick. Yeah. I don't think it was that close, but getting there, the bridge was about to lower.
Yeah, so lap 3 is slower there just because the bridge trick he had to do is not in his favor at all.
I love the bunk at the end of that race as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting, very interesting to see how different it is with the bridge position. I think I saw him even go on a different side on different laps as well.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
The left side on lap 2 and the right side on lap 3.
Something that occurs to me with these retro courses is there ever a situation where something would be found on, say, the DS version of this course and then translate to Wii, or are the physics different enough that doesn't happen?
Ooh.
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
I think the reverse of that has been, so there's been some things in Mario Kart Wii, and then retro Mario Kart Wii courses in later Mario Kart games have still worked. So maybe Mushroom Gorge, I think, appears in Mario Kart 7 perhaps, and there's definitely a skip in Mushroom Gorge that can be used in Mario Kart 7 that is originally from Mario Kart Wii. So I'm not sure about the other way though.
I will say this isn't like an exact cause and effect, but on the Mario Kart 64 DK Jungle Parkway, there is a glitch where you can essentially just go behind the last turn of the lap and just basically drive in a circle there over and over. And we can kind of do that, but it's through a different way of doing it. But I guess the entire premise of just repeating the last section of the course over and over again is the same.
So do they keep the checkpoints the same between versions?
That's another good question. I actually don't know. I don't have much experience with any of the other Mario Kart games. I imagine it's somewhat of a similar system. I mean, what comes to mind, I think, is no, I don't know. I think the checkpoint system is different. If you think about Mario Kart 64, Wario Stadium comes into mind, where you can just jump over the wall to another piece of the track and then just jump over the wall again behind the finish line, and that counts the lap. Something like that wouldn't quite work in Mario Kart Wii, but definitely. Yeah, I would say the checkpoint systems are different.
Yeah, I guess that would mess with a lot of the glitches that might be transferable.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I think next we're going to show off the Waluigi Stadium glitch. There is no better example of what rapid fire hop abuse can do than this track. So he's going to drive right past this bump right here, turn around, rapid fire off this ramp to get off the finish line, rapid fire hop through the zipper. You can actually do that if you get a good enough angle with rapid fire hop abuse. And he does rapid fire again there to get a low trick off the ramp. So he's passing through an invisible wall, and this is how the DK Jungle Parkway glitch works that you'll see in a bit. And I want to think that it's how Coconut Mall works. So the finish line is a horizontal wall. So he's hitting a horizontal wall and then passing through the vertical invisible wall. And there's something with the collision system in this game where if you pass through an invisible wall within a certain time limit after hitting a horizontal wall, it'll let you pass right through it. And we're not quite sure why.
Yeah,
Still trying to look into that.
But yeah, we're not entirely sure.
Are there any invisible walls closer to inbounds, or are they all sort of up off the track, like where that finish line is?
Well, can you repeat that again? I'm confused with the wording.
So, like, you were already kind of out of the intended play area during that clip.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Invisible walls, they extend pretty high up in most circumstances, at least on the sides of enclosed tracks like that. So I don't know if there'd be a way to just get over the invisible walls. There's a mod for this game in a custom track pack. It's a 200cc mod, so you're driving about 1.5 times as fast as normal. And you can actually fly over the invisible wall that we just went through, right by the finish line, by getting a lot of airtime over the last ramp of the track. I'll try to find the video clip for that as well. But he gets a tremendous amount of height, and for all intents and purposes, I don't think it would be possible to get that much height in 150cc. So we wouldn't normally be able to pass over invisible walls like that.
Speaking of CCs, does anyone care about TASing lower CC levels or not?
You can only TAS time trials in 150cc, fortunately.
All right. That makes sense. Good on.
However, we were trying to think about like modding in 200cc. You can already do that with a speed cheat code, but the version of the 200cc mod that's available in the custom track pack that's distributed in the community, they introduced something called brake drifting, which is a mechanic in Mario Kart 8. While you're drifting, you can press the brake button. That way you can continue drifting while taking the turn tighter. As well as there's something called fast falling. So if you tilt forward and you do a nosedive in the air, you'll actually fall at a faster rate than you normally would in 150cc. So we're interested to see what those mechanics could hold in TASes, but we don't have an available mod to patch an actual game file to use in emulation. We'll have to wait and see.
Are those mechanics inspired by other games that have 200cc?
Definitely Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially the brake drifting.
I don't know what introduced the concept of fast falling.
Melee.
No, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that's a mechanic in Mario Kart 8.
Yeah, you're never in the air for that long in Mario Kart 8, so.
Yeah.
I would like to see 200cc TASs. That would be very good. Faster is always better.
I think we should also show off the no glitch TAS. Let me find that really quickly because I forgot to put that in the playlist.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. No, I just found it. So this was also made by Zak. So I had the record before him actually, and he improved it by a tremendous amount.
5 seconds.
Yeah. All these strategies are different. So he uses mushroom all the way near the beginning of the lap, and he takes this shortcut shroomless by just riding the wall. Here he's going up and down the zipper just to maintain, about like 119 kilometers an hour. He gets a double trick on that ramp to take the turn tighter, sticks to the floor there to get a trick with no airtime. And he rapid fires this last ramp. I think this TAS was also made in 2014. Luckily,
Yeah,
this is console verifiable. It's on a new enough Dolphin version for it to be accurate enough to sync on console. I really think that this was one of the best TASs for its time. Like execution-wise, these strats were amazing to see. So much was changed from the previous record. Zak thought of so many new strategies to integrate into the course, and it worked out well. It looks like. And then his rapid fire hop there is a little bit lower off that last ramp. It's actually a little bit better to get more airtime for lap 1 and 2, because then you can bring some of that ramp boost into the following lap. But since we're ending lap 3 as soon as we cross the finish line, you want to land as soon as possible.
Okay.
Very good. I like when they were riding up on the half pipe, you can really see them going up and down as well. That was good to see. Because
in an ideal world, we'd be doing what you do on DK Summit, where you're just like, you're not even going up and down, you're just like moving in one line and repeatedly getting boosts. But this half pipe is much more vertical than the DK Summit one, so it's not really possible.
It does point out nicely that those zippers are dependent on direction, though, which is good to see.
Yeah.
All right. The next task we're going to show off is DS Desert Hills. This was made by Derek. So you can take it away. I'm sure you know more about this course than I do.
Starting with a slide strat, drifting, mini turboing into off-road, and then clip over this wall and do some janky things. So there's a lot to explain there. I'll go over it in lap 2. Right now, controversial topic, this ramp. What do we do on it? Do we trick twice? Do we trick once? I actually found it was faster to trick once. Out of all things, like why? Why isn't it faster to trick multiple times? It's complicated. So what's even more complicated is coming up here on the glitch. So this dark brown sand, when you touch it normally, it counts you out of bounds. Unless you touch it for a certain amount of time, like a frame maybe. And with a certain angle and probably some quantum mechanics going on as well. It might even be the case that we're just skipping over that zone within the frame. I'm not sure if that's true or not. And maybe that's why we're not being counted out of bounds. People accuse me of actually cheating this run just because of that. They're like, why you touch the brown sand without being counted out of bounds? So yeah, the single trick. Normally we double trick, but you can get a nice single trick and instantly land on the ground. I have some theories as to why it's better than a double trick. For now, the single trick is the fastest strategy.
Was this made on an early enough Dolphin version to console verify? Because we could just play it back on console to just to verify that none of that was foul play.
Oh, yeah. So no, it was made on an old version of Dolphin, so it's not.
Oh, okay.
But I think people have done the thing I did on newer versions of Dolphin, and therefore
okay, yeah,
on console.
Clearly a cheated run. When I played Mario Kart Wii, I went on that brown sand and went out of bounds.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we got him.
Can't fool me. That was a good watch, though. I found it fascinating that it was worth going on the lighter brown sand to slow down. I guess it's worth it for the shortcut, though.
Yeah. So, like, if we shroom... Oh, yeah, so this is important. If you shroom too early, you actually boost when you touch the brown sand. So, we need to waste a little bit of time just chilling on the light yellow or the darker yellow sand, but not brown sand. So, yeah.
I love that you get 3 mushrooms. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Alrighty, what have we got up next?
All right, so next up we have GBA Bowser Castle 3. So there's a huge shortcut on this track, but we don't consider it an ultra shortcut since it's not skipping any key checkpoints.
But we still count it
We'll
as
see that in a little bit.
Category, maybe?
Yeah, we definitely have a note. I think we call it no shortcut. I don't know. But whatever, yeah. I guess I would consider it a glitch.
So these turns are amazing. He gets the character's elbow into the wall, and like that's happening on most Tazes, but it's really
this was made by Monster, who he came into the community very recently.
So either Funky doesn't have hitboxes in his elbows, or the walls are deceiving hitboxes, or he's just skipping through the wall in between the 2 frames.
Oh, that's a good way of thinking it. I never thought about it. But yeah, if you're hit the side of this yellow, I don't know what you call it, like the boost ramp, kinda.
Yeah, those are weird ramps.
Yeah, if you hit the side of it, you can get a tremendous amount of airtime. Normally, that shortcut is done using a mushroom in RTA. Or no, he used a mushroom here too. Never mind. It is possible to do it shroomless, but it's significantly slower. Oh, he uses the mushroom after the bridge. Okay.
Yeah, he also hits the side of these boost ramps to like preserve your speed. These ramps slow you down a lot, but like to 60 sometimes, maybe even 50. But he manages to utilize them to keep his speed up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Shrooms there, gets the slip drift, takes a nice turn. The thing you just heard was called if you let go of A, if you let go of accelerate and then insert a frame of braking every other frame, it actually doesn't slow you down at all, surprisingly, and it makes this terrible sound. And people were doing this in their runs all the time, right? When that was found.
I'm surprised that's not more common, actually. I would totally do that if I chose this game. Every run.
People have gotten really sick of it.
I'd make them more sick of it. That was good. That was good, though. So why do those yellow boost ramps slow you down? That seems pretty weird.
Nintendo hates us.
I don't know why it's that way. I think it was just because that's how the ramps were in the Game Boy Advance Mario Kart Super Circuit. And they just wanted to, for authenticity's sake, I guess, they wanted to make the ramps similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember playing it casually and being very frustrated by them as well. So, Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting choice, but I'm glad that the Tazza can get around it. Alrighty, what do we got up next?
Alright, this is this the last Ultra in the game? This is the last Ultra shortcut. So we can turn around. We're gonna clip this tree by doing a double wheelie while backing up, and that just causes us to get a lot more air time when we clip the tree. We can fly over through the invisible wall because we're hitting the horizontal wall that is the finish line. So we can temporarily pass through walls. And we could just repeat that several times.
Such a similar shortcut to the one Drew Weatherton does in Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
Like going back to a similar zone.
Yeah, that is very reminiscent of N64, isn't it? It's cool to see the subtle differences there, for sure.
Yeah, we have to do much more complicated things to get it to work, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the Mario Kart Wii designers might have seen the N64. I'm not sure if that was discovered before.
That might be true. Yeah, like in Mario Kart 64, I think you're just like exploiting a texture flaw in the wall, but this one we have to utilize the finish line to actually allow visible.
Like that invisible wall is incredibly high, but recalling what I mentioned earlier with what we call bump fest, if you take a really light character and you have a really heavy character that slams into the light character, they can essentially end up having so much upwards momentum they slide up the wall, and they can actually go over the invisible wall.
That's great. It's a good strategy. Yeah, it is very interesting to see that, though. I'm glad that it's possible.
Yeah, this was it's worth mentioning that there was a series of 3 glitches that were found within the same week in 2014. This is years after any other Ultra Shortcut has been found. Somebody by the name of Blaze was able to find those. He's in our tasking community. And yeah, I don't know how he managed to do it, but he found all these Ultra Shortcuts.
Legendary.
So they were the first Ultra Shortcuts, were they?
Oh, no, they weren't.
Ah,
no.
The first one was...
I think the first one was Grumble Volcano, and I think that was found within a few days of the game's release, actually. Which is crazy to think about. But yeah.
So, that was the last Ultra Shortcut we have, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
There is one more glitch coming up, but for now, these are going to be no Ultra Shortcuts.
Alrighty. So what have we got up next?
Right. So this was made by Zak. This is a GCN Mario Circuit. You'll mostly hear you'll just see well executed lines. That's something that humans don't do right there. He went over the curb. He was able to get enough airtime to not hit the grass.
Oh, and the sequence
don't
of curb manipulations is not something they do either, where he just like wheelies for a long time and just utilizes the angle changes from the curb to go straight forever.
That's so precise.
Drifting. So he did a wheelie trigger back there. We'll point it out again. So up here, he just... What is he? Just wheelies right now. And all the way up to there. It's crazy. Normally you do 2 or 3 drifts. Coming up here is a wheelie trigger. Right there. Very short.
Again,
mechanics involved in the last ramp.
Yeah. When he leaves this tunnel again, it might look like he's going slow because, he's really far to the right here. But just because we're able to stay in our wheelie the entire time, so that we don't lose like any speed, it's so much faster than drifting or anything. There we have it.
So if you were to lose your wheelie, how difficult is it to get back up to top speed?
It depends for how long you drop your wheelie for. If you drop down all the way to your base driving speed, which I think for the Flame Runner is 84.
Yeah,
I think it would take several seconds.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what exact length, but you would end up losing probably close to like a second actually driving, or maybe not that much. Maybe like half a second, please.
Yeah,
something around there.
Spear's got a really terrible acceleration. So
Wow,
The
that's
spear or the
intense.
flame runner?
Sorry,
Oh, I thought
the flame runner. The flame runner. The
Oh, yeah.
spear's got decent acceleration. Flame
Yeah.
runner's got terrible acceleration.
All right, so the next track is SNES Mario Circuit 3. This is one of the most optimal tracks, and this was definitely one of the first tracks to be considered optimized just because of how simple it is. It's also worth noting that this was the first track that passer by the name of MK Dasher. He showed the community that we could really benefit from using TAS input. Having a on-screen controller that allows us to put in like really precise inputs, so that we can take these turns as optimally as possible. So yeah.
This runs by Dwaynium B.
And yeah, I would say all these turns and strategies are pretty similar to what RTA does.
Yeah.
I think even the triple mini turbo strat on the really wide turn, that RTA does that.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe. Those mini turbos were pretty precise.
Yeah.
Especially the timing of them. Maybe it only does double mini turbo. I'll have to watch. Nicely done. Ooh, Peach Garden's coming up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that track was really good to see. I find it hilarious that they take the mushroom across the sand rather than taking the intentional shortcut with the gap in the wall.
Oh yeah, that's always worth mentioning. Yeah, I always thought that was funny, learning how to play this game.
More.
Yeah,
it's all that counterintuitive stuff. Easy to
exactly.
miss. Yeah. Oh, good stuff.
All right, so up next we're going to show off Peach Gardens, and we're going to preface this by saying that this track is different from every other track you've seen before, because instead of using manual transmission with drifting, we're going to use automatic. And I'm sure Derek can take away talking about this because he worked on it.
Yeah, so there's a notable section in this course that makes it so drifting with manual is very slow. So the nice thing about automatic is you can turn in your wheelie without speed loss. In manual, when you turn in your wheelie, you lose speed very, very fast, whereas automatic, you lose no speed at all. So this section right here in the hedges, you'd have to be hopping every time, or turning in your wheelie, which is definitely no. You'd rather be hopping. Or you can just wheelie through the entire thing with automatic, and so automatic is a full, maybe second or two faster than manual on this course. Right there, I clipped the last staircase. People ask me, why would you do that? It actually increases your speed. I'm actually inside the hedge on there, on the second hedge.
I was gonna comment, it's crazy how like you're literally inside some of the hedges.
So this little thing I do, I managed to hop. Now you can't hop with automatic, so how do you do that? If you're drifting with automatic and then put the control stick to the opposite side within a 1 frame window, it makes you hop. Oh, and it's good
also
to know.
worth noting. Oh, I think we're on the same page here. You can go for it.
Yeah, so you can't just hold a turn direction when you're wheeling. You have to, if you press, full right while wheeling, it will eventually make you start drifting after 15 frames. So you have to input a frame of what's called a 5-value turn, which is just like slightly less than a full right turn. And then you can maintain your wheelie throughout the entire thing. So lap 2 is notably slightly slower than lap 3 because there's a little chain chomp in my way on lap 2 that I have to do some careful maneuvering to avoid. Notably what's called an artificial luck wheelie, where I intentionally turn too long while wheeling so that it breaks my wheelie and starts to enter me into a drift. But if I just press the wheelie button again, it lowers me down by about 3 units of speed, but that slight reduction in speed allows me to let the chain chomp pass me by a little more so I can get around him. But the act of just getting around him is also slow too.
Yeah, real good. I like how close you're getting to the hedges there. He really doesn't have elbow hitboxes, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a rectangle.
And it's really fascinating automatic's faster than I had forgotten that you even had a transmission choice. And
Yeah.
there's so many variables that, it's really great that you were able to notice that, for sure.
It's also worth noting on Moonview Highway, the world record RTA used to use spear and automatic. Because I think the only reason for that was just because good alignment going into like the toll plaza area. So it's really useful to be able to turn in your wheelie to fix your alignment stuff. But yeah, for Peach Gardens, it's even RTA. They still use automatic. It's way better than manual.
Oh, as of yeah. It used to use manual, but as of very recently,
Right.
Brett managed to take the world record back with automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So you said automatic is better for like kind of turning with wheelies. So what advantage does manual have over automatic then?
Mini turbo boosts when you're drifting, so you don't get those with automatic. And what's nice about mini turbo, it's not even the boost that is helpful. It's the fact that you have a boost and then you do a wheelie, which immediately brings you to top wheelie speed. Otherwise, you'd be accelerating from 85, and that's bad. But the boost, the main use is not the speed boost you get, but the fact that it immediately puts you at top wheelie speed.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, I'm glad there are some levels where automatic is faster, because it makes for a more interesting speed game, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, what do you got up next?
So the second to last track we're going to show off is DK Mountain for the GameCube. This task was made by Sware. He's currently working on improving it. I think he's still working on lap 1 now. This is still a really good pass in itself. So this is going to make use of a glitch. It's going to abuse the wall collision by a blue zipper and a fence, and he's going to essentially squeeze himself in between the two walls. For that turn back there, he was able to stick to the floor and take a much tighter turn than you normally would be able to. So yeah, he shrooms and gets himself stuck in between those two walls, shoots through with a trick. He's able to spin around and take the shortcut right there.
That fence clip was insane.
Mm-hmm. It's possible RTA, but the world record does it every lap, but it's decently hard to pull off, I would say. It's precise, but not too precise.
And they don't do a trick with it, as far as I'm aware.
Oh yeah, the trick is really precise. I think you only have like a 3-frame window, depending on how long your boost duration is. If your boost ends too short, you'll end up getting stuck to the wall, and you'll wrap around the side of the mountain and fall off.
So how much time does clipping that fence take?
Let me pull up the spreadsheet. I'm actually not sure. Looks like it saves 7 seconds.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
7 seconds overall on the 3 lap, so.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And normally this bridge is awful to deal with. You can end up getting a lot of bounces every time you fall down and hit the bridge again. You'll just bob back up. But he's able to stick to the bridge. As far as I know, that's quantum mechanics when you approach the bridge, but I'm not sure why it happens or anything.
Yeah, cool. That was a real good one. I like how after the fence clip, you can have your nose pointing into the ground and you don't like crash.
Yeah, that's a really funny side effect. What we've been trying to see is if you keep using mushrooms, if maybe you could cut off that shortcut where he normally lands from the glitch, and if you could just wheelie and immediately be driving towards the bridge at the end. But yeah, it doesn't seem like you can go over or through the invisible wall at all. So the last task that we're going to be showing off, it's a track that we have never been sure what the fastest character is between Daisy Machbike and Funky Kong and Flame Runner. So let's just watch the comparison, and we'll see which one wins.
So
I think this is
Russo was the one. He's like, so longest time we were like, well, Flame Runner's faster, and Russo's like, no, I think Daisy's faster, and we're like, no, maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So Daisy looks like she's taking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Funky's ahead. So Daisy, it looks like she takes turns like wider, like she's farther away from their wall. Her hitbox is terrible. Her hitbox is like deceivingly large. It's maybe even larger than Funky Kong's. And so she takes turns. She has a sharper turn radius, but she has to avoid walls more so than Funky does.
So this is where Daisy pulls ahead. Her mini turbo boost is a lot longer, so when she's doing those 3 mini turbos right in, like one right after the other, she's able to pull ahead of Funky Kong.
Yeah.
All right, so you can see the lap times at the top. They're the exact same. So yeah. And yeah, both of these tasks were made by Zak. And
he was like working on these tasks simultaneously, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because he really wanted to try to make sure he had as fair of a comparison as possible. So yeah, you can see again, Funky Kong's still ahead during this section.
But then she gains a lot of time at the shroom spot there. And then definitely this triple mini turbo because Funky Kong can't take it as tight. And then her mini turbo has a lot of duration.
So Daisy was just slightly ahead. I'm pretty sure they crossed the finish line on the same frame, but when the game calculated the lap time, she was a little bit ahead. I can't say for sure that it was the exact same frame, but it's within a frame.
So the game like interpolates your position to calculate the lap time?
Yeah, there's an algorithm that calculates it depending on your sub position.
Yeah.
Well, that makes in-game time really good for this, then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, if you enter the lap count from the side, like in the Coconut Mall glitch, it actually only does it based on frame count. The algorithm spits out an error because you're not entering you're not triggering the lap from behind the finish line. Anyway, that is the total time. They tied exactly.
It's an unironic tie.
Yes.
As Zak describes it.
Now, if we're going to get really technical, we can look at the algorithm that determines the lap count time, and the game only displays it up to milliseconds, but we can actually observe it, I think, close to 12 decimal places. And so, as it turns out, Funky Kong is ever so slightly faster, just barely. I think by a magnitude of like 10 to the -6 or something like that seconds. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. And that they were overtaking each other as well during that and still ended up at the same. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it really does go to show you how optimized these Mario Kart Wii tasks can get too. It's very good to see.
Uh-huh.
You never know, maybe someone will find a time save with Daisy or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd love to see something like that happen, and we can finally end the debate on this track.
I think it's fair to say that they're pretty much both the same, but I do like how you're having subframe measurements of how quick they are. It's really
and
good.
As far as like our RTA goes, Daisy's maybe an easier character to use because we have to pull a lot of strings to get Funky to do these like tight turns really well, whereas you wouldn't really have to worry about that with Daisy.
That's surprising. I thought Daisy would be worse because your eyes would be tricked by her hitbox. I guess you get used to it though.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. I don't know.
I'd say it would come down to muscle memory. I think if you just get used to Daisy and what turn radiuses work and what don't. Yeah, I'd say you get used to it from there.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
I think that's all the tracks that we wanted to show.
Yeah, that's it for the tracks. So, all right. So we've got some upcoming projects. So with, do one of you want to talk about console verification? I think we briefly touched on it, but we could explicitly say it here.
Yeah, so just because the Dolphin emulators become very accurate, well, I wouldn't say very accurate, but it's become accurate enough where the collision throughout the game is accurate to actual game console for you to be able to take ghost data made on emulator and transfer it to console, and you can play back tasks on your Wii. And I've already done that with several of our records, and it works fine. And it's really it's fun to watch, a task that you made for weeks and weeks on your computer and actually be able to play it back on your Wii. And what we plan to do with this is for SGDQ 2019, we're going to be submitting Mario Kart Wii tasking for the task block. And hopefully they find it interesting enough and we can, do what we kind of did on this podcast, commentate about some of the more interesting tracks that we've shown, namely a lot of the ultra glitch tracks and some of the no glitch tracks like DK Summit, Coconut Mall, because I think those are really impressive. Because I'd really love to be able to showcase, a passion for tasking this game that so many of us share. I've been tasking this game for like 7 years now, on and off. So it'd be really awesome to, help showcase our work and represent the community at an event like that.
For sure.
And I think Derek will be going.
Do you know for sure? As well. Okay. I'll probably go to SGDQ regardless. Maybe I
think I will too. But yeah, that'd be a fun time.
Yeah, well, I really hope it gets in for you. I think that would be great to see in a TAS block. And yeah, I think a lot of people would be very interested in seeing those TASs and finding out that they are console verifiable too. It reminds me a lot of what they were doing with Super Monkey Ball. I think it was like last year.
Yeah, the replay system. Yeah, I remember that from on GDQ.
Yeah, well, I really do hope it gets in for you. Cool. So, is there anything else you want to talk about with Mario Kart Wii testing?
I guess we can just say, I think 8-Bit Beast will include a link in the description to the best known time spreadsheet. It's just a Google sheet that has all our best times with YouTube links. And then on there, you can also find a link to our Discord, Mario Kart Wii Tasking Discord. And so you can get to know people in the community, learn how to, optimize the game, learn about the tech. And yeah, just come to hang out, I guess.
We've had in our minds to make some tutorials sometime soon. Malleo's got a tutorial he made a long time ago, but there's been lots of new things, discovered since then. And also the tutorial mostly focuses on how to use Dolphin and stuff, but specific advanced tech things like Supergrinding and side trick abuse, we'd love to release a tutorial for that sometime soon.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think one of us will, definitely get around to making something like that. That'd be really beneficial to the community, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be sure to include links to as much as I can. So, Malleo, where can we find you?
So on YouTube, it's Schwamalleo MK. I used to share the channel with somebody. That's SHWAMALLEO MK. We'll have that linked, I guess. I'm then on Twitter and Twitch, I'm TASMalleo. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
And TASPlasma, Derek?
You can find me at TASPlasma on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitch at TASPlasma.
Nice. Oh, well, yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure. Cool. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening/watching.